Good evening, Night Owls, and welcome to Midnight Reddit Tales. The world outside is quiet, and we're back with some of the most captivating stories Reddit has to offer. As always, if you enjoy spending your late nights with us, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and settle in. Turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's get straight to the stories.
Story 1.
I stole my granddaughter's pacifier at a family barbecue, mailed it to a DNA testing lab, and blew up 3 generations of my family in 11 days. And the worst part, the part that keeps me awake at 3 in the morning staring at the ceiling fan, is that the bomb I built landed right back in my own living room. My name is Diane. I'm 61 years old. I live in Marietta, Georgia, in a 4-bedroom colonial. I've kept immaculate for 30 years. I raised 2 sons, managed every holiday, every school function, every doctor's appointment. I was the backbone. I was the one who held it all together. That's what I told myself anyway. Let me tell you how I destroyed everything. My oldest son, Marcus, married Keisha 4 years ago. I never liked her. I'll just say it. I thought she was too independent, too secretive, too quick to shut me out of decisions about my own grandbaby. When Amara was born, Keisha limited my visits. Said I was overwhelming. Said I needed to respect boundaries. Boundaries. That word makes my jaw tight even now. I spent 30 years running this family. I don't do boundaries. But here's the thing I couldn't let go of. Amara didn't look like Marcus. Not to me. She had lighter skin, different features, and I know no times people will say, babies change, genetics are complicated, all of that. But something in my gut wouldn't quit. And when your gut talks, you either listen or you spend the rest of your life wondering. So at the 4th of July barbecue, while Keisha was in the bathroom and Marcus was flipping burgers, I picked up Amara's pacifier off the picnic blanket, slipped it into a Ziploc bag in my purse, and smiled at my husband Gerald like nothing happened. That Monday, I ordered a home paternity kit. I swabbed Marcus's coffee cup when he came by to drop off my prescription. He didn't even notice, and I mailed both samples to the lab with expedited shipping. $97.14 to detonate my family. The results came back 9 days later. I opened the envelope standing at my kitchen counter with the morning news on in the background. The report said Marcus was not Amara's biological father. Probability of paternity 0.0%. My hands were shaking, but not from shock. From vindication. I felt time's right, asterisk. I'd known it. I'd known Keisha was hiding something, and now I had proof in black and white. I didn't call Marcus. Not yet. I sat with that envelope for 2 days thinking about timing. Because if you're going to expose someone, you do it when it counts. You do it when there are witnesses. You do it when they can't run. Thanksgiving was 48 hours away. I made my move the night before. I didn't do it face to face. I know that makes me look worse, but I wanted everyone to see it at the same time. I photographed the results, typed up a message, and dropped it into the family group chat. 23 people. Marcus. Keisha. My younger son, Darnell. Cousins, aunts, Gerald's sister, everyone. The message said, I think the family deserves to know the truth before we sit down together tomorrow. I had a paternity test done. Marcus is not Amara's biological father. I'm sorry, but lies don't belong at my table. The chat exploded within minutes. Marcus called me 17 times. I didn't answer. Keisha sent one message, just one, that said, you had no right. Darnell texted, Mom, what did you do? Not a question, a statement. My sister-in-law, Paulette, called me evil. My niece said I was unhinged. Gerald sat across from me in his recliner and didn't say a word. He just stared at the television like he'd gone deaf. But then something shifted. Around midnight, Keisha posted in the chat a long message. She said yes, she'd had an affair before the wedding. She said she and Marcus had already dealt with it privately. She She said Marcus Times knew Times he might not be Amara's biological father and had chosen to raise her anyway because he loved her. She said they'd been in couples therapy for 2 years and had made peace with it. She said the only person who couldn't leave it alone was me. I felt the ground tilt. Marcus knew. He already knew. And he'd chosen his family anyway, and I'd just dragged that choice into the light for 23 people to pick apart. But I couldn't back down. I told myself Keisha was just doing damage control. I told myself Marcus was brainwashed. I told myself I was still right. Then Gerald spoke. He was still in his recliner. He hadn't moved in hours. The TV was off now. The house was dead quiet. And he looked at me with an expression I'd never seen in 32 years of marriage. Not anger, not disappointment. Fear. He said, "Diane, you need to stop." I said, "I'm protecting our son." He said, "No, you're not. And if you keep pulling this thread, it's going to come back to us." I didn't understand. Not at first. I asked him what he meant. He got up, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled a shoebox from the top shelf behind the Christmas tablecloth behind the wreath I use every year. He set it on the kitchen table and opened it. Inside were letters. Old letters. And a photograph of a boy I didn't recognize, maybe 8 or 9 years old, with Gerald's exact jawline, Gerald's exact ears, Gerald's exact hands. Gerald had a son. A son from an affair in 1991, 3 years into our marriage, with a woman named Lorraine who lived in Decatur. The boy's name was Terrence. Gerald had been sending money, not much, but something, for over 20 years. Lorraine had passed away in 2015. Terrence was 32, now living in Charlotte. Gerald had never told me. Never told Marcus or Darnell. Never told anyone. He said I kept this secret to protect this family. The same way Marcus was trying to protect his. And you just made that impossible for him. I sat down at the kitchen table and I couldn't breathe. 30 years. 30 years of me managing every detail, controlling every narrative, deciding who was trustworthy and who wasn't, and the biggest lie in the family was sitting in my own hallway closet behind a Christmas wreath. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen until the sun came up reading those letters. They were mundane mostly. School updates. A dental bill. A note about Terrence's first job. Normal life happening in parallel to mine, funded by my husband, invisible to me. I thought I knew everything. I thought that was my job. I thought control was the same thing as love. Thanksgiving morning, no one came. Marcus texted the group chat at 8 a.m. and said he and Keisha would not be attending. Darnell said he was taking his girlfriend to her family's dinner instead. Paulette didn't respond at all. My 23-person group chat went silent for the first time in years. Gerald made himself a plate of leftovers from the fridge and ate alone in the living room. I sat at the dining table I'd set for 12, the good china, the cloth napkins, the centerpiece I'd spent $40 on, and I ate nothing. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. Not to forgive me. To tell me that he and Keisha were setting a firm boundary, that word again, and that I would not be seeing Amara until I completed therapy and demonstrated that I understood what I'd done. He said it calmly. He said it like he'd rehearsed it. He probably had. I asked about Gerald's secret. Whether he'd told Marcus about Terrence. He said Gerald had called him the morning after and told him everything. Marcus said at least Dad had the decency to be ashamed. Gerald and I are still in the same house. We sleep in separate rooms now. He's talking about reaching out to Terrence openly. No more hiding. I don't know if our marriage survives that. I don't know if it should. I spent 30 years believing I was the foundation of this family. Turns out I was just the person everyone was managing around. The secrets weren't a failure of my vigilance. They were a response to it. I wanted the truth so badly that I stole it from a baby's mouth. And the truth I got was that I never knew my own house. Not even close.
Story 2.
I signed my resignation letter at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in February, sitting in the break room of the cardiac ICU at Mercy General Baltimore. My hands weren't shaking. That's how I knew it was real. 2 years of shaking hands of crying in my car before shifts of popping Tums like candy because my stomach lining was basically decorative at that point, and now nothing. Just calm. The kind of calm that comes when you've already died inside and the paperwork is just a formality. I slid the letter under the nursing director's door, walked back to the unit, and finished my shift. 12 hours. 4 patients. 1 code blue that we lost. Business as usual. When I clocked out that morning, the sky was that weird yellow-gray color that Baltimore gets before something biblical rolls in. The weather apps were screaming about a historic winter storm. I didn't care. I had 14 days left. 14 days and I'd never have to see Denise Hartwell again. Let me tell you about Denise. Charge nurse cardiac ICU going on 11 years. 5'2" reading glasses on a beaded chain voice. Like a kindergarten teacher explaining why you can't have more juice. And underneath all of that, the most methodically cruel person I have ever met in my life. I'd tried to transfer out of that unit 6 times. 6. Twice to the ER, once to the NICU, once to outpatient surgery, twice to other hospitals in the system. Every single time something went wrong. A recommendation letter that arrived late. An evaluation that mentioned concerns about reliability I'd never been told about. A shift conflict that mysteriously appeared on the schedule the week of my interview. I thought I was unlucky. I thought the universe was telling me to stay. Then my friend Keisha in HR pulled me aside one night in the cafeteria and told me the truth. Denise had been calling the hiring managers. Every time. Poisoning the well before I even had a chance to interview. Telling them I had attendance issues, attitude problems that I'd been written up, none of which was true. She'd been doing it for 2 years. When I asked Keisha why, she just looked at me with this tired expression and said, "Because you're good, Maya. You're really good." And she doesn't want to lose a good nurse on her numbers. That's when I stopped trying to transfer and started planning to quit. The storm hit at 4 a.m. the next morning. Not a gentle accumulation. A full-blown nor'easter that dumped 19 inches in 6 hours, with wind gusts that knocked out power to half of East Baltimore. I was home in my apartment watching the transformer across the street explode in a shower of blue sparks when my phone rang. It was the hospital's automated emergency system. Code white. All essential personnel report immediately. The backup generators had failed, not all of them, but enough. The ICU was running on partial power, and they were activating the emergency staffing protocol. Maryland law is very specific about this. During a declared medical emergency, licensed nursing staff who are on the active roster can be placed on a mandatory hold. You cannot leave. You cannot refuse. If you walk out, you lose your license. Not your job, your license. The thing that took me 4 years of school and 2 board exams to earn. I called the unit. I called the nursing director. I called the staffing office. Every single one of them told me the same thing: my name was on the emergency hold list. Report by 0600 or face disciplinary action. I hadn't been on the emergency hold list when I checked 2 days ago. I know because I checked specifically knowing the storm was coming, knowing I just put in my notice. Denise had added me overnight. I drove to the hospital in whiteout conditions, my Honda Civic fishtailing through intersections where the plows hadn't come yet. The parking garage was half empty because most of the day shift couldn't make it in, which was exactly the problem. When I walked onto the unit, it was chaos. Half the monitors were dark. They'd moved patients into a cluster near the functioning outlets, beds crammed together like a field hospital. The ventilators were on battery backup and the batteries had maybe 4 hours left. Denise was at the nurse's station calm as Sunday morning, wearing her reading glasses and sipping from her world's best nurse mug. She looked up at me and smiled. Maya, thank God. We're so short-staffed. I stared at her. I put in my resignation yesterday. I know, honey. But you're still on the active roster for 14 more days. And we need you. She tilted her head, that kindergarten teacher tilt. Unless you want to walk out on your patients during a crisis. She knew exactly what she was doing. She'd been planning it from the moment she saw my letter. Maybe before. Maybe she'd been watching me for weeks, waiting for me to finally try to leave so she could prove one last time that I couldn't. The next 72 hours were the worst of my career. And I've coded a 19-year-old gunshot victim on Christmas Eve, so that's saying something. We had 22 critical patients and 4 nurses. 4. For a unit that's supposed to run on a minimum of 8. The power flickered constantly. We lost 2 ventilators completely and had to handbag patients in shifts, literally standing there squeezing an ambu bag for hours because there was nothing else keeping them alive. My shoulders seized up around hour 16. I switched to my left hand. By hour 20, I couldn't feel my fingers on either side. Denise didn't bag anyone. Denise managed the schedule, answered the phone, and documented. Always documenting. I watched her note every time someone took a bathroom break, every time someone sat down for 30 seconds. Building her file, protecting herself. At hour 31, we lost Mr. Abernathy. Room 4. 78 years old, triple bypass 6 days prior, and his arterial line had been reading garbage for hours because the monitor kept losing power. By the time we caught the real bleed, it was too late. I did compressions until my arms gave out, and then Tanya, the travel nurse, who'd been on for 20 hours straight, took over, and then we called it. I walked into the supply closet, and I broke. Not crying. Something deeper than crying. This sound came out of me that I didn't recognize, like something structural had finally given way. And that's where Denise found me. She opened the door, looked at me crumpled between the ivy poles and the linen cart, and she said, I will never forget this. She said, Maya, I need you back on the floor. We don't have time for this. I stood up. I looked at her. And something in my face must have changed because she took a step back. I know what you did, I said. The transfers. All 6 of them. I know you called every single hiring manager and lied about me. I know you added me to the hold list after I resigned. And I know you're documenting every mistake on this shift so you can blame the staffing failure on us instead of on you. She opened her mouth. I didn't let her speak. Mr. Abernathy is dead because we had 4 nurses for 22 patients. That's your staffing decision. That's your hold list. That's your name on the charge sheet. And when this storm is over, I'm not just quitting this unit, Denise. I'm filing a formal complaint with the Board of Nursing, and I'm giving them every email, every schedule change, every transfer denial with your fingerprints on it. Keisha already pulled the records. Her face went white. Not angry white. Scared white. The reading glasses slid down her nose, and she didn't push them back up. You can't prove any of that, she whispered. Watch me, I said. And I walked past her back onto the floor because I still had patients who needed me. I finished the 72-hour hold. All of us did. Tanya, Marcus, little Priya, who was 6 months out of nursing school and aged 10 years and 3 days. We kept 21 and 22 patients alive on half power with a skeleton crew, and when the National Guard finally cleared the roads and relief staff arrived, I walked out of that hospital without looking back. I filed the complaint. I filed it with the Board of Nursing, with hospital administration, and with a labor attorney named Dwight Simmons, who took one look at my documentation and said, oh, this is going to be fun. Denise was suspended pending investigation 3 weeks later. By April, she'd been removed from her charge position. hospital settled with me out of court for an amount I'm not allowed to disclose, but I will tell you it covered my student loans and then some. I'm a nurse at Johns Hopkins now. Trauma unit. Different hospital, different culture, different life. My hands don't shake anymore. My stomach doesn't burn. I sleep through the night most nights, which feels like a miracle after years of waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart pounding, dreading a shift that was still 12 hours away. But sometimes when the power flickers during a storm, I'm back in that supply closet. I'm back on my knees between the IV poles making that sound. And I think about all the nurses who are still trapped on units like mine was under people like Denise, who can't leave because someone made sure they couldn't. The system didn't save me. I saved myself. And that's the part that still makes me angry because I shouldn't have had to.
Story 3.
I changed the locks on my own house once. When I was 26, bought the place, first thing I did was swap out every lock because the previous owner was going through a messy divorce and I didn't trust that his ex wouldn't show up with a key. 14 years later, my sister did the same thing to me. Except she wasn't protecting the house from strangers. She was locking me out of it. Let me back up. My name's Greg. I'm 40 years old. I'm an electrician in Denver, and I've owned my house in Lakewood since 2010. 3 bedrooms, finished basement, small yard. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Every wire in that place I've touched with my own hands. I know that house better than I know most people. My sister Dana is 3 years younger than me. She married a guy named Scott when she was 24. 2 kids, Mia, who's 9, and Jaden, who's 7. Scott wasn't a bad guy, but he wasn't a great one either. Drank too much, couldn't hold a job for more than 18 months. When Dana called me last October crying, saying they were done, saying she'd filed, I wasn't surprised. I was relieved for her, honestly. She asked if she could stay with me. Just for a few weeks. Just until she figured things out. She said the apartment she'd been looking at fell through and she didn't want the kids sleeping on someone's couch. I said yes. Of course I said yes. She's my sister. The first week was fine. Dana kept the basement tidy, the kids were polite, she cooked dinner twice. I told her, take your time, no rush, just keep me in the loop on your apartment search. She nodded and thanked me and said I was the best brother in the world. Week 2, she stopped mentioning apartments. Week 3, packages started showing up at my door with her name on them. Week 4, I came home from work and there was a shoe rack in my hallway that I didn't buy. A decorative mirror on the wall by the front door. Stuff from Home Goods with the tag still on. I didn't say anything. I should have. But you don't want to be the guy who makes his divorced sister with 2 kids feel unwelcome. So I swallowed it. Then came the job in Fort Collins. It was a commercial rewire, a restaurant renovation, 4 days on site. I left on a Tuesday morning, told Dana I'd be back Friday evening. She said great, she'd watch the house. I remember she smiled when she said it. I got back Friday around 7. Put my key in the front door. It didn't turn. I tried again. Jiggled it. Nothing. I checked right key, right lock. But the lock wasn't the same lock. The hardware was different. Brushed nickel instead of the brass I'd installed myself. I stood there on my own porch for a full minute just staring at it because my brain couldn't process what was happening. I knocked. Dana opened the door with this look on her face like I was a neighbor stopping by. She said, "Oh, I had the locks changed. The old ones felt flimsy. Here, I got you a key," and she handed me a key. To my own house? I should have lost it right there. But I was tired. 4 days of pulling wire through old walls, my back was killing me, and the kids were sitting right there on the couch watching a movie. So I took the key and I said, "Dana, you can't just change the locks on someone else's house." She said, "I was trying to help. Relax." That Monday, I found out the rest. I was going through the mail, and there was a letter from Jefferson County Public Schools. Enrollment confirmation for Mia and Jaden. At the elementary school, 3 blocks from my house. Using my address as their home address. She hadn't asked me. Hadn't mentioned it. Just did it. When I confronted her, she said the kids needed stability, that she couldn't keep them bouncing around, and that since they were already living here, what was the big deal? The big deal. I told her she needed to start looking for a place. Seriously looking. I said I loved her and the kids, but this was my home and she was making decisions about it without me. She got quiet, then she got cold. Said I was being selfish. Said she had nowhere to go. Said the kids had already made friends. 2 days later, my phone started ringing. My mom called first. Then my Aunt Linda. Then my cousin Marcus. Then my other aunt, Patricia. One after another, all saying variations of the same thing. "Dana told us you offered her the house. She said you told her she could stay as long as she needed. She said, you're going back on your word." I could feel the blood draining from my face. She had called every single person in our family and told them a version of events that didn't happen. She'd painted this picture where I was the generous brother who'd open his home and now for no reason was trying to throw a mother and her children onto the street. My mother, my own mother, said to me, "Gregory, how could you do this to her after everything she's been through?" I tried to explain. Nobody wanted to hear it. When it's a woman with 2 kids versus a single guy with a 3-bedroom house, the math is already done in people's heads before you open your mouth. I could hear it in their voices. They'd already decided. I went home that night and told Dana she had 30 days. I was calm. I was direct. I said I'd help her find a place. I'd even cover first month's rent, but she needed to be out. She looked at me and said, "This is my home now too, Greg. You can't just kick us out." That's when I realized. This wasn't my sister being desperate. This was a plan. The locks, the school enrollment, the family phone tree, she was building a case. She was establishing residency. She knew exactly what she was doing. I called a lawyer the next morning. Sat in his office, feeling sick to my stomach while he explained Colorado tenant law to me. Dana had been living there for over 30 days. Even without a lease, even without paying rent, she had tenant rights. I couldn't just change the locks back. I couldn't move her stuff out. I had to go through a formal eviction process. Against my own sister. The eviction notice went out on a Thursday. Dana cried. The kids looked confused and scared, and that almost broke me. Almost. But then I remembered standing on my own porch with a key that didn't work, and I held firm. She fought it. Of course she fought it. She showed up to the hearing with a legal aid attorney and argued she'd been invited to live there indefinitely. She showed texts where I'd said, "Take your time and no rush." Her lawyer tried to frame those as an open-ended agreement. The judge saw through it. He asked Dana one question that ended everything. "Did you have the homeowner's written permission to change the locks on his property?" She said no. He asked if she had written permission to enroll her children using his address. She said no. He granted the eviction. She moved out on a Sunday in January. Didn't say a word to me. Loaded up a U-Haul with stuff, some of it hers, some of it mine. I didn't even fight over it and drove to my mom's house in Aurora. My mom still isn't speaking to me. Neither is my Aunt Linda. My cousin Marcus sent me a text that just said, "Cold-blooded and nothing else." At Christmas, I wasn't invited to the family dinner. First time in 40 years. Dana got an apartment in February. 2 bedrooms, subsidized housing. The kids are fine. She's fine. She landed on her feet, which is what she would have done months earlier if she hadn't been so busy trying to land on mine. I changed the locks again after she left. Went back to brass. Installed a deadbolt and a camera system too. Some nights I sit in that basement where she stayed and I think about calling my mom. About explaining one more time. But I've learned something about family. They don't want the truth. They want the version that lets them sleep at night. And the version where the single guy gives up his house for the struggling mom, that's the one that lets everybody sleep. Everybody except me.
Story 4.
I never thought I'd be the kind of person who forges documents. But I also never thought I'd be the kind of person who gets caught. My name is Denise Hargrove, and for 11 months, I was the Director of Human Resources at Kessler & Webb, a mid-sized accounting firm in Columbus, Ohio. 42 employees. 3 floors of a building off Polaris Parkway that smelled like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. I'd worked my way up from HR coordinator over 6 years, and when they finally gave me the title, I told myself I'd earned it. I told myself a lot of things. The truth is, I was good at my job the way a locksmith is good at breaking into houses. I knew every system, every loophole, every place where the paperwork could be bent without snapping. And for a while, that made me feel powerful. It shouldn't have. Let me tell you about Sarah Nguyen. Sarah was a senior accountant who'd been with the firm for 4 years. She was quiet, competent, and well-liked, the kind of employee who made my job easy because she never caused problems. She reported to Doug Fessler in the audit division, and every single one of her performance reviews said the same thing: exceeds expectations. I didn't have a problem with Sarah. Not really. Not at first. But when she came to my office in March and told me she was pregnant, something shifted in my chest. Something cold and calculating that I wish I could blame on someone else. See, I'd just gotten word from the partners that they wanted to trim headcount. Not a layoff, they were too image conscious for that word, but a strategic realignment. They wanted me to identify 3 positions that could be eliminated or consolidated. And Sarah's role with her salary and her benefits was expensive. A maternity leave on top of that. 12 weeks of paying someone to not be there, plus the cost of a temp. I could already hear the partners grumbling. So I made a decision. And I made it fast before my conscience could catch up. I went into the HR management system, the one only I had admin access to, the ones that said exceeds expectations in every category. I changed them. All 3. I rewrote the narrative sections, swapped the ratings to needs improvement, and added comments about missed deadlines and poor communication that had never happened. I backdated the edits so it looked like the original entries. Then, I created a disciplinary report, completely fabricated, documenting a supposed verbal warning from January about Sarah's declining performance. I forged Doug's electronic signature on it. I'd seen him sign enough documents to replicate the format. Within 48 hours, I had a paper trail that told a story. Sarah Nguyen was a struggling employee who'd been warned multiple times, and her termination was a reasonable business decision that had nothing to do with her. Pregnancy. I submitted the package to the partners with a recommendation for termination effective April 15th, exactly 2 weeks before Sarah's maternity leave was scheduled to begin. I want to tell you I felt sick doing it. I want to tell you I lost sleep. But honestly, I felt efficient. I felt like I was solving a problem. That's the part that haunts me now, how easy it was to dehumanize someone when you're staring at a spreadsheet instead of their face. The partners approved the termination without a single question. Why would they question it? I was the HR director. The paper trail was clean, the documentation was thorough. That was my job. What I didn't account for was Marcus Webb. Not the partner, his nephew. Marcus was a 26-year-old IT technician who'd been hired as a favor to the family and mostly spent his days resetting passwords and unjamming printers. He was the kind of guy everyone underestimated, including me. In late March, the firm was migrating to a new cloud-based server. Marcus was responsible for transferring archived files, and part of that process involved reconciling current documents with their backup versions. It was tedious, mechanical work, the kind of thing nobody pays attention to. Except Marcus did. He noticed that Sarah's performance reviews had two versions. The backup files from the old server contained the originals, the ones that said exceeds expectations. The current files said needs improvement. The metadata showed the edits had been made from my admin account on a Tuesday evening in March, 3 days after Sarah had disclosed her pregnancy. Marcus didn't come to me. He went to Sarah. I found out about it on a Thursday morning when I walked into the office and saw Sarah sitting in the lobby with a woman I didn't recognize. The woman was wearing a gray suit and carrying a leather portfolio, and she stood up when she saw me with the kind of calm confidence that made my stomach drop. "Miss Hargrove, I'm Angela Torres. I represent Sarah Wynn. We need to talk about some documents." I remember my mouth going dry. I remember the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like they were suddenly too loud. I said something like, "Of course, let's use the conference room because that's what HR people do. We redirect everything into a controlled space." But there was no controlling this. Torres laid it all out. The original files, the altered files, the metadata timestamps, the fabricated disciplinary report that Doug Fessler swore he'd never seen, let alone signed. She had printouts side-by-side comparisons and a flash drive containing the backup data Marcus had preserved. Sarah didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at me with this expression I will never forget, not anger, not hurt, but something worse. Disappointment. Like she'd trusted the system, trusted me specifically, and I'd confirmed every fear she'd ever had about what happens to women in the workplace when they become inconvenient. "Why?" she asked. Just that one word. And I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Not one that would make sense to anyone who wasn't sitting inside my head doing the math on headcount and budgets and trying to impress partners who'd forget my name by the next quarter. I tried to say something about the restructuring, about business decisions, and Torres cut me off. "Miss Hargrove, you altered legal employment documents and forged a supervisor's signature to manufacture cause for terminating a pregnant employee. This isn't a business decision, this is fraud. And it's pregnancy discrimination under both federal and Ohio state law." The meeting lasted 20 minutes. It felt like 3 hours. By that afternoon, the partners had been notified. By the next morning, they'd hired an outside counsel to conduct an internal investigation. And that's when things got truly ugly, not just for me, but for the firm. Because when the investigators started pulling records, they didn't just find what I'd done to Sarah. They found the others. Over the previous 4 years, 2 as coordinator, 2 with increasing system access, I had altered documentation for 7 other employees. Not all terminations. Some were demotions. Some were denied raises. One was a man in accounts payable who'd filed a complaint about his manager, and I'd quietly rewritten his review to justify a transfer to a lesser role. Another was a woman who'd taken extended bereavement leave, and I'd added attendance warnings to her file that never existed. I'd been doing this for years. Small edits. Quiet adjustments. Nudging the paperwork to match whatever outcome I'd already decided on. I told myself it was efficiency. I told myself I was protecting the firm. But the truth is, I liked the control. I liked being the person who decided who stayed and who went, and I liked that nobody ever checked my work. The audit exposed all of it. Every altered file. Every fabricated warning. Every forged signature. I was terminated on a Friday. No severance. No reference. Security walked me to my car with a banker's box of personal items while people watched from the second-floor windows. Sarah's attorney filed a lawsuit the following week: pregnancy discrimination fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress. 2 of the other affected employees joined with their own claims. The firm settled all 3 cases for a combined amount I'm not allowed to disclose, but I can tell you it was enough to make the local news. I was personally named in the suit. My professional certifications were revoked after an ethics review. I now have a legal judgment against me that I'll be paying off for the next decade. And Sarah. She had her baby in August. A girl. She went back to work at Kessler & Webb in November with a promotion and a raise, because it turned out that when you actually look at her real performance reviews, she was one of the best employees they had. I drive past that building sometimes on my way to the temp agency, where I now do data entry for $14 an hour. The lights are always on. The parking lot is always full. Life went on without me the way it always does when someone turns out to be less essential than they thought. I built a career on controlling other people's stories. I just never imagined someone would recover the original draft.
Story 5.
My father died on a Tuesday, and I'm sitting here in a solicitor's office in Leeds, staring at a number on a piece of paper, and the number is 11,432 pounds. That's it. That's what's left. That's what 4 of us spent 6 years destroying each other over. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Claire Hale. I'm the second oldest of 4. My father, Gordon Hale, was a retired management accountant who lived in a semi-detached house in Horsforth, drove a 12-year-old Volvo, and kept a vegetable garden that was frankly immaculate. He was quiet, methodical, the kind of man who ironed his pajamas. And he was. I now understand the most dangerous person I have ever known. Not because he was violent, not because he screamed or threatened, but because he understood people, his own children specifically, better than we understood ourselves. And he used that understanding like a scalpel. It started, as far as I can reconstruct it, about 6 years before he died. Dad was 71, recently widowed, and in reasonable health. He called each of us, me, my older brother Martin, my younger sister Philippa, and the baby Owen, and told us he'd drawn up a new will. He said he wanted to be transparent. Said Mum's death had made him think about fairness. Then, he let the details slip. Not all at once. Never directly. A comment to Martin about how the house was worth more than people thought. A remark to Philippa about how he'd restructured some investments. A casual mention to Owen that he'd been speaking with his solicitor about equitable distribution. Each of us got a slightly different picture. Each of us believed we knew something the others didn't. And that was the trap. The first will, or at least the first version any of us heard about, left the bulk of the estate to Martin. Made sense on paper. He was the eldest. He'd helped Dad with Mum's care at the end. But 6 months later, Dad revised it. This time, Philippa's name came up more prominently. She'd been visiting every Sunday, bringing the grandchildren, making herself indispensable. I remember the phone call from Martin. His voice was tight, controlled the way it gets when he's furious but won't admit it. "Has Dad said anything to you about the will?" he asked. I said no. That was a lie. Dad had told me just the week before that he was thinking of leaving me the house. Specifically the house. He said I was the only one who'd appreciate it. I believed him. God help me, I believed him. What happened next unfolded slowly, like water damage, invisible until the structure starts to buckle. Martin stopped speaking to Philippa. He was convinced she was manipulating Dad, angling for a bigger share. Philippa, meanwhile, had heard from Owen that Martin was pressuring Dad to add him as a co-signer on the investment accounts. Owen told me this in confidence. I told my husband David. David mentioned it to Martin's wife Sarah at a family barbecue after too many beers. And that's when the first marriage started to crack. Martin accused Sarah of disloyalty. Sarah said she was tired of the whole family treating the inheritance like a state secret. They separated for 3 months, got back together, separated again. They're divorced now. 2 kids caught in the middle. Meanwhile, Owen and Martin had been running a small property renovation business together. Nothing huge, 2-3 flips a year. It worked because they trusted each other. But Dad, in one of his little informational drip feeds, told Owen that Martin had been asking questions about whether business assets could be counted against his inheritance share. Owen panicked. He pulled funding from a project mid-renovation. Martin was left holding a half-gutted terrace house in Armley and a 60,000-pound bridging loan. The business collapsed within 4 months. Owen and Martin haven't spoken since. That was 3 years ago. And Philippa. Sweet, anxious Philippa, who just wanted everyone to get along. Dad told her, and I only learned this after he died, that I had been lobbying to have her share reduced because of her husband's bankruptcy. I had done no such thing. I didn't even know her husband had gone bankrupt. But Philippa believed it because Dad delivered every lie wrapped in the language of reluctant honesty. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I think you deserve to know. That was his signature phrase. His weapon of choice. Philippa cut me off completely. Blocked my number. Sent back a Christmas gift unopened. I spent an entire year not knowing why my sister wouldn't speak to me. When I finally cornered her at Dad's 75th birthday, she screamed at me in the kitchen. Called me a snake. Said I'd always been jealous of her family. I screamed back. I said things I can't take back. Things about her husband, about her choices, about the fact that she'd always been Dad's favorite and maybe that's why she was so desperate to protect her share. We were standing 3 feet apart, faces red, voices cracking, and Dad was in the next room. Sitting in his armchair. Drinking tea. I think about that now and it makes me physically ill. Because he heard every word. He heard his daughters tearing each other apart over money he no longer had. And he just sat there, sipping his Yorkshire tea, proving his point. The last 2 years of his life, none of us were speaking to each other. Not properly. Martin was bitter and broke. Owen was riddled with guilt but too proud to apologize. Philippa had built a fortress of righteous anger. And me, I was just tired. Tired and suspicious of everyone. I started questioning David's motives. Wondering if he'd married me partly because of what my father might leave us. We went to couples counseling. The therapist said I had trust erosion. Trust erosion. That's a clinical term for what my father did to me. He died in his sleep. Peacefully, they said. The solicitor, a man named Granger, who'd clearly been expecting this moment, gathered us in his office. It was the first time all 4 of us had been in the same room in over a year. Martin sat by the door. Owen sat as far from Martin as possible. Philippa wouldn't look at me. Granger read the will. The final version. And it was almost comically simple. Everything split 4 ways equally, no conditions, no special bequests. No mention of the house, the investments, the accounts Dad had dangled in front of us like bait for 6 years. Then Granger told us the number. 11,432 pounds. Total estate value. The house had been remortgaged. The investments had been liquidated years ago, spent on what we still don't entirely know. Some of it went to charity. Some of it, I suspect, went to nothing at all. The point was never the money. Granger handed each of us a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. Same letter, 4 copies. I've read mine so many times the creases are wearing through. It said I grew up watching my parents pretend to love each other while fighting over my grandfather's farm. I watched my mother's family disintegrate over 19 acres of land that wasn't worth the soil it sat on. I learned then that money doesn't corrupt love. It reveals that love was never there. I needed to know if my children were different. You weren't. I'm sorry for that. But I'm not sorry for finding out. He signed it Dad. Not Love Dad, just Dad. I sat in my car in that car park for 45 minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there, engine off, staring at a brick wall, trying to understand how a man could spend his final years conducting an experiment on his own children and call it truth-seeking. The thing is, and this is the part that keeps me up at night, he wasn't entirely wrong. We did turn on each other. We did choose money over loyalty. Every single one of us at some point made a calculation about what we stood to gain and what we were willing to sacrifice to get it. He predicted it all. Martin's pride, Owen's cowardice, Philippa's need for validation, my quiet, corrosive suspicion. But here's what my father got wrong and what I will carry to my own grave. We weren't monsters before we started. We were flawed, ordinary people who loved each other imperfectly the way families do. He didn't reveal our nature. He manufactured a crisis and then watched us drown in it. That's not insight. That's cruelty dressed up as philosophy. Martin and I have started talking again. Slowly. Carefully. Owen sent me a text last week, just a photo of his daughter's school play. No words. I sent back a heart emoji. It's not much. Philippa still won't answer my calls. And my father, my quiet, methodical, pajama ironing father, got exactly what he wanted. He proved his thesis. He died right. And we're the ones left here trying to figure out if he was a monster or just the only honest man in the family. I still don't know the answer.
Story 6.
I still remember the exact sound my apron strings made when I pulled them loose. That soft whisper of cotton against cotton. Funny how your brain latches onto the smallest details when your entire life is about to change. My name is Maya Castillo, and for 3 years, 7 months, and 11 days, I was the head chef at Bellamy's on Michigan Avenue, one of the top-rated restaurants in Chicago. I built that menu from nothing. I trained that crew from a bunch of green culinary school kids into a machine that could push 400 covers on a Saturday night without breaking a sweat. And on a Friday in October, I walked out of that kitchen and never looked back. Let me tell you why. The owner was a man named Richard Bellamy. Rich, as he insisted everyone call him, though nobody on the line did. We called him other things. Rich inherited the restaurant from his father, who'd actually been a decent chef back in the 80s. Rich himself couldn't cook an egg without consulting YouTube. But he had the money, the real estate, and the name on the liquor license. So he walked around that kitchen like he was Gordon Ramsay reincarnated, touching things he shouldn't touch, tasting sauces he couldn't identify and offering. Suggestions that were really demands wrapped in a smile that never reached his eyes. For the first year, I managed him. That's what you learn as a head chef. Half the job is cooking, and the other half is managing the ego of whoever signs your checks. I'd nod when he told me the risotto needed more cream. I'd smile when he rearranged the plate presentation based on something he saw on Instagram. I'd quietly fix everything after he left the kitchen, and the food that went out to the dining room was mine. Always mine. But Rich had been getting worse. A lot worse. He'd started showing up during service, not just before or after. He'd stand behind the pass and contradict my calls. He'd pull dishes off the line and send them back for reasons he couldn't articulate beyond "it doesn't feel right." My sous chef Danny told me once that working under Rich felt like being a surgeon, while some guy who watched a few episodes of Grey's Anatomy kept grabbing the scalpel. The week before everything fell apart, Rich called me into his office. He wanted to change the lamb dish, our signature lamb dish, the one that had been written up in the Tribune, the one people literally reserved 2 weeks out to order. He wanted to swap the braising liquid from red wine to some high-end sake, because he'd been to a fusion place in LA and thought it was the future. I told him it wouldn't work with the flavor profile. I told him the rosemary and the sake would fight each other. I told him the dish was perfect the way it was. He told me to do it, or he'd find someone who would. So I did it. Against every instinct in my body, I reformulated the dish. I spent 3 days trying to make sake work with a Mediterranean lamb preparation, and honestly, I got it to a place that was acceptable. Not great. Not the dish that made us famous, but acceptable. That Friday, Rich had invited every food critic and influencer he could get his hands on. 12 of them seated at a long table right in the center of the dining room. He called it a showcase dinner. What it really was Rich trying to prove that Bellamy's was his vision, his genius, his restaurant. He'd been reading his own press clippings, press that quoted me by name, and it was eating him alive that people associated the food with me instead of him. Service started at 6. By 6:30, we were already in the weeds. The regular Friday crowd was packed in, plus the critic table ordering the full tasting menu, plus a private party of 20 in the back room that Rich had booked without telling me. My line was stretched thin. Danny was running grill and sauté simultaneously. My pastry chef Elena was plating desserts while prepping appetizers. Everyone was working double. And then the lamb started going out. Table 7 sent it back. Then table 12. Then one of the critics flagged down a server and said politely but unmistakably that the lamb tasted confused. I watched through the pass window as Rich's face changed color. He stormed into the kitchen and I knew in my bones what was about to happen. He didn't pull me aside. He didn't lower his voice. He stood in the middle of my kitchen during the hardest push of the night, with every single cook within earshot, and he said, "Maya, what the hell did you do to my lamb?" I looked at him. I said, "I made the changes you asked for, Rich." He laughed. Actually laughed. This short, ugly bark of a laugh. And then he said, "And I will remember these words until the day I die." He said, "I didn't tell you to ruin it. I told you to improve it. If you can't handle a simple adjustment without destroying a dish, maybe you're not the chef I thought you were." The kitchen went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The only sound was the hiss of butter in a pan that nobody was watching. I said, "Rich, you specifically told me to replace the red wine with sake. I have the email." He stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, that expensive, suffocating cologne he bathed in. And he said loud enough for the servers in the hallway to hear, "You're replaceable, Maya. Every chef in this city would kill for your position. Maybe it's time I reminded you of that." Then he told me he was docking my pay for the wasted lamb. $400 for a dish he had ordered me to change. Something broke in me. Not dramatically, not like in the movies where someone screams or throws a pan. It was quieter than that. It was like a wire that had been holding everything together just snapped. Silently. Completely. I looked at Danny. He was standing at the grill, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on mine. I looked at Elena, who had tears running down her face, not from sadness, from rage. I looked at my line cooks, Miguel and Terry and James, who had followed me from my last restaurant because they believed in me. Every single one of them was watching. Waiting. I reached behind my back. I pulled the strings of my apron. That soft whisper of cotton. I folded it once, set it on the pass, and I said, "Then replace me." Rich blinked. For the first time in 3 years, the man had nothing to say. I walked toward the back door. And behind me, I heard the most beautiful sound I've ever heard in a professional kitchen. One by one, aprons hitting stainless steel. Danny's first. Then Elena's. Then Miguel, Terry, James. the dishwasher Carlos, who Rich had threatened to fire just last week for taking a bathroom break during service. Even Sarah, the new extern who had only been with us for 2 months. Every single person in that kitchen untied their apron and walked out behind me. We pushed through the back door into the alley, and the cold October air hit my face and I started shaking. Not from the cold, from the adrenaline, from the terror of what I'd just done, from the freedom of it. Danny put his hand on my shoulder and said, "That was 3 years overdue." Elena was already on her phone. "My cousin's got a space in Pilsen," she said. "Commercial kitchen, month-to-month lease." I didn't answer. I just stood there in that alley listening. Because if you were quiet enough, you could hear it through the walls. The sound of 200 tickets printing with nobody to cook them. The sound of servers pushing through the kitchen doors and finding nothing but empty stations and cooling burners. The sound of a man who called me replaceable discovering in real time in front of every food critic in Chicago that he couldn't replace a single one of us. Rich tried to cook. I heard about it later from one of the servers who stayed. He actually put on an apron and tried to work the line himself. He burned the first 3 orders. He sent out raw chicken to table 9. A critic from the Sun-Times live tweeted the entire meltdown. By 9 o'clock, Rich was standing in an empty kitchen, the dining room half cleared his showcase dinner in ruins, and the hashtag Bellamy's burnout was trending in Chicago. The restaurant closed permanently 6 weeks later. As for me, Elena's cousin's space in Pilsen turned out to be perfect. We opened 4 months later. Small place, 30 seats, open kitchen. I named it Apron. Danny runs the line. Elena does pastry. Miguel, Terry, James, Carlos, every single person who walked out with me that night has a station and an equity stake. The Tribune reviewed us 3 months in. 4 stars. The critic wrote Chef Castillo's lamb, braised in red wine as God intended, is worth the trip alone. Rich never called, never apologized. Last I heard, he was trying to open a fast casual concept in the suburbs. I think about that night sometimes. Standing in that alley, shaking, terrified, with nothing but my crew and the cold air and the faint sound of a man's empire collapsing under the weight of his own ego. He told me I was replaceable. Turns out the only thing that was replaceable was him.
Story 7.
In my family, we have a tradition. It's not about money or fancy things. It's about thread and time and love. When a new baby is born, the grandmother on the mother's side knits the coming home outfit. Every single stitch is a prayer, a wish for a good life. I did it for my sister's 3 kids. My mother did it for mine. The outfit is always red for luck, for protection, for a vibrant life. It's the first real garment the baby wears out in the world, a cocoon of family history. So when my eldest daughter Pam called me, her voice trembling with excitement, to tell me she was pregnant, my first thought after the explosion of joy in my chest was of yarn. Soft merino wool, the color of a ripe cherry. "Mom," she'd said a few weeks later after the first ultrasound, "you're going to make the outfit right, the red one, for my baby." Tears sprang to my eyes. "Of course, sweetie. I've been waiting my whole life for you to ask." I started that night. For 7 months, that project was my shadow. I'd sit in my worn armchair, the needles clicking a steady rhythmic beat, while the TV hummed in the background. I poured everything into it. I wove in tiny, almost invisible patterns, a small stalk of wheat for prosperity, a little wave for a calm spirit, a tiny 8-pointed star over the heart for guidance. It was more than a sweater and booties. It was a story, a blessing she would be wrapped in. My hands ached, my eyes strained, but my heart was full. When I finally finished the little matching cap, I wrapped the entire set in soft tissue paper, tied it with a white ribbon, and felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Pam's delivery wasn't easy. It ended in an emergency C-section and a beautiful screaming baby girl they named Lily, my first grandchild. As planned, I went to stay with Pam and her husband Tom for 2 weeks to help. Tom was great, but his parents, the Davidsons, were a lot. Nice enough, I suppose, but their love language was money. Every day, a new delivery would arrive, a $400 bassinet, a stroller that cost more than my first car clothes with logos I didn't even recognize. I tried not to let it bother me. I was there for Pam and Lily. I cooked, I cleaned, I held the baby so Pam could sleep. The day before they were scheduled to be discharged from the hospital, I helped Pam pack Lily's go bag. "Don't forget the most important part," I said, smiling as I pointed to the beautiful gift-wrap box on the dresser. I'd brought it with me from home. It was labeled in my neatest script times, "For Lily's Journey Home." Asterisk. Pam glanced at it, a quick, almost dismissive flick of her eyes. "Oh, right. Tom, can you stick that in the bag?" Tom grabbed the box. A flicker of unease went through me. "You did put my outfit in there, right, Pam?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Yes, Mom," she said, her focus on folding a ridiculously small onesie. "It's in there. The special one. For her departure." The unease vanished, replaced by a warm flood of anticipation. I pictured it already, my tiny granddaughter, wrapped in 7 months of my love, leaving the hospital to start her life. The next day was a chaotic blur of nurses, paperwork, and flowers. Tom's parents arrived, smelling of perfume and money cooing over Lily. Finally, it was time to go. The nurse gave the final all clear. Pam, still sore and moving, slowly nodded toward the go bag. "Mom, can you do the honors? Dress her for me." She then handed me the box I had pointed to the day before, the one with my handwriting on it. My heart swelled. This was it. This was the moment. The passing of the torch. I carried the box over to the bassinet where Lily was sleeping, her tiny chest rising and falling. I said a silent little thank you and carefully untied the white ribbon. I lifted the lid, pushing back the layers of tissue paper. And then I froze. There was no soft cherry red wool. There was no tiny hand-stitched star. Instead, nestled in the paper was a cream-colored cashmere onesie. A tiny interlocking good game pattern was woven into the fabric. A matching hat and booties lay beside it. It was beautiful, I suppose, in an empty, sterile way. It was expensive. It was Gucci. A small gift card was tucked inside. Asterisk. "Welcome to the world, Lily. With love, Grandma and Grandpa Davidson." Asterisk. I stared at it, the blood draining from my face. My hands felt cold. I looked over at Pam, who was busy talking to her mother-in-law, laughing at something she said. She wasn't looking at me. She knew exactly what was in this box. She'd confirmed it. Asterisk. "Yes, Mom. It's in there." Asterisk. The lie was so casual. So complete. My throat closed up. 1,000 things streamed through my mind. I wanted to drop the box. I wanted to walk over to my daughter and ask her why. Why she'd let me pour my heart into something knowing she was just going to throw it aside for a status symbol. Why she'd lied to my face. But I saw her wincing as she shifted her weight. She was recovering from major surgery. She was a new mother, hormonal and exhausted. I couldn't make a scene. I couldn't ruin this day for her or for the baby. So I said nothing. With trembling hands, I lifted the designer outfit from the box. It felt weightless, meaningless. I gently woke Lily and slid her tiny arms and legs into the ridiculously expensive clothes. She looked like a doll in a store window. A stranger. I swallowed the lump in my throat, a hard, painful knot of betrayal. I swaddled her in her blanket, picked her up, and walked over to Pam, forcing a smile that felt like cracking glass. "She's ready," I whispered. Pam beamed. Oh, Mom, she looks perfect. Doesn't she look perfect? I just nodded, unable to speak. I handed my granddaughter my first grandchild dressed in a lie over to her mother. The silence in my own head was deafening for weeks. I went home and put the red outfit away in a chest in the attic, unable to look at it. I answered Pam's calls and told her she was a wonderful mother. I looked at the pictures she sent of Lily in the Gucci outfit, the ones that got hundreds of likes on social media. Each one was a fresh stab in the heart. The hurt settled deep in my bones, a cold, heavy ache that wouldn't go away. I thought I was hiding it well. But kids always know. My son Mark stopped by one afternoon a month later. I was sitting at the kitchen table staring into a cold cup of tea. He watched me for a long moment, his brow furrowed with concern. Mom, he finally said, his voice gentle. What's going on? You haven't been yourself since Lily was born. You seem so sad. Did something happen? The question hung in the air between us, heavy and real. I took a shaky breath, the dam I'd been building for weeks starting to crack. His gentle gaze was too much. It was one thing to lie to myself, but I couldn't lie to my son. The whole story spilled out of me. The 7 months of knitting, Pam's specific request, the patterns woven with wishes, the lie about the box, the shock of finding that designer label. My voice cracked as I described dressing Lily in a stranger's gift, while my own steeped in tradition and love was probably still in the hospital bag discarded. I didn't say a word, Mark. I couldn't. She'd just had surgery. But she asked me for it. She made me believe it mattered. I finally looked up from my hands, my eyes burning. It's not about the Gucci outfit. I don't care if it cost $1,000. It's that she asked me to pour my soul into something for that one specific moment, and then she threw it away and lied to my face about it. Mark listened, his expression hardening from concern to anger. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That's awful, Mom. I'm so sorry. He stood up, pacing the small kitchen. She shouldn't have done that. She should have just been honest from the start. He was so furious on my behalf, it actually made me feel a little better. I felt seen. I felt validated. He promised he wouldn't say anything to Pam, that he'd let me handle it. I should have known a brother's loyalty would win out. I don't know who Mark told. Maybe his wife, who then told her sister. Maybe he vented to our cousin. All I know is that within a week, the story had slithered through the family grapevine, twisting and mutating with each retelling. The nuance was the first casualty. My deep hurt over a betrayal of trust became Ella's upset. Pam didn't use her knitted outfit. That in turn became Ella hates the expensive gift from the Davidsons. The final most toxic version was the one that reached Pam. My phone rang 2 weeks later. It was her. I answered with a hopeful, "Hi, sweetie." "Don't you sweetie me," she spat, her voice tight with rage. "I cannot believe you." "I am a new mother. I am recovering from major surgery, and you are running around behind my back telling the entire family that I'm a monster." I was so stunned I couldn't speak. "What, Pam? No, You're just what upset? You think you're the only one with feelings here. Tom's parents did something incredibly generous for their first grandchild, and you're acting like they committed a crime. You're just jealous. That's all it is. You're jealous they can afford to buy her beautiful things and you can't." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. Jealous? I couldn't have cared less about the price tag. I would have been just as hurt if she'd swapped my outfit for a $10 onesie from Target. "That is not what this is about, and you know it," I said, my voice trembling. "This is about you asking me to make something special, a family tradition, and then lying to me." "Oh my God, the tradition," she scoffed, a cruel, sharp sound. "Are you even listening to yourself? You're trying to make the birth of my child all about you and your stupid knitting. Lily is healthy, she's beautiful, and she's loved. Why isn't that enough for you? Why do you have to create all this drama?" Every word was a perfectly aimed dart. She had taken my genuine grief, my feeling of being so carelessly dismissed, and reframed it as petty, selfish, attention-seeking. She wasn't just defending her actions. She was attacking my character. She was invalidating months of my love and labor, dismissing it as a prop in my own melodrama. "Pam, that's not fair," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "No, what's not fair is you trying to ruin this special time for me," she said, her voice rising. "I don't have time for this. I have a baby to take care of." Then she hung up. The silence that followed was absolute. I just sat there, phone in my hand, staring at the wall. She had turned my love into an accusation, my hurt into a weapon she could claim I was using against her. The family, of course, fractured. My sister called immediately, furious at Pam. "What is wrong with her?" I told her. "Your mother would have knit that outfit with her bare teeth if she had to, and you treat her like this?" But then my brother-in-law called Tom, trying to play peacemaker, and ended up taking his side. "You know how Pam is," he told my sister later. "She's overwhelmed, and the Davidsons are her family now, too. Ella needs to be the bigger person." My phone buzzed with texts. A cousin telling me I was completely in the right. An aunt telling me I should just apologize to keep the peace. "It's just a sweater, Ella. Is it worth losing your daughter over?" Was it? The question echoed in the empty house. I walked up to the attic, the stairs creaking under my weight. I opened the cedar chest and lifted out the little red outfit still wrapped in its tissue paper. I ran my thumb over the tiny 8-pointed star stitched over the heart. A blessing for guidance. I had spent 7 months pouring love and protection into this little garment. And in one phone call, my daughter had convinced me it was nothing more than a symbol of my own selfishness. Pam's accusation that I should just be happy about the baby's health was the cruelest cut of all. It implied my feelings were in opposition to my granddaughter's well-being, that my sadness somehow diminished my love for her. I sat on the dusty floor of the attic holding the little red sweater to my chest, and I felt a profound sense of confusion. Was I a jealous, dramatic woman trying to make everything about myself? Had I overreacted? Was a broken tradition a secret lie and a crushed heart? Really? Such a big deal in the grand scheme of things? I didn't have an answer. I just knew that something had been broken that day in the hospital, and it wasn't just my heart. It was a thread in our family fabric, a thread I had spent a lifetime knitting. And I had no idea if it could ever be repaired.
Story 8.
I always thought we had the perfect story. You know the one. The high school sweethearts who actually made it. 10 years married for 5. We were the couple our friends pointed to and said, "See, it can work." I built my entire life on that foundation. Our foundation. It's why I started the company. J&A Contracting. Johnny and Amanda. Corny, I know, but it was supposed to be our legacy. I'd bust my ass for 10 years, build an empire from drywall and 2x4s, and then we'd cash out. Buy that colonial on a cul-de-sac, fill it with a couple of kids, and a golden retriever. The whole damn American dream gift wrapped. I wasn't just building houses. I was building times ours. Asterisk. Every late night, every sawdust-filled Saturday was a brick in that future home. I'd come home smelling of wood stain and sweat, my hands cracked and raw. I'd find her on the couch scrolling through her phone. "Hey, babe," I'd say, kissing the top of her head. "Hey," she'd answer, eyes glued to the screen. Long day. The longest. But the Peterson kitchen is almost done. The backsplash looks incredible. You should see it. I was always trying to pull her into my world to make her see the blueprints taking shape. "That's great, Johnny." Tap, tap, scroll. The distance started as a hairline crack. So small you could ignore it. I'd be sketching out a deck design at the dining room table at 11 p.m., and she'd walk by on her way to bed. Coming soon, she'd ask her hand on the light switch. "Just gotta finish this proposal." This one job could pay for our down payment, Mandy? The whole thing. She'd just sigh. A soft little puff of air. Okay. Don't be too late. The light would click off, leaving me in a small circle of lamplight alone with my plans for us. I told myself it was sacrifice. The short-term pain for the long-term gain. I was a fool. The cracks started to spread. Her phone, which used to be communal property, suddenly had a passcode. She'd angle it away from me when a text came in. "Who's that?" I'd ask, leaning over to steal a fry from her plate. "Just Sarah from work," she'd say, quickly typing a reply and flipping the phone face down. It was always work. Work drinks became a weekly thing. Then a twice-weekly thing. She started talking about this new guy on her team, Mark. "He's hilarious," she'd say. "You'd like him." He was always in the story she told about her day, a new recurring character in a show I wasn't watching. I'd nod along, half listening my mind on payroll and lumber costs. One Friday, I decided to surprise her. I closed out the job site early, picked up her favorite Thai food, and a bottle of wine. I walked into our apartment, ready for a win. Ready to be the husband who showed up, who wasn't just a ghost covered in sawdust. The apartment was empty. I put the food in the fridge and sat on the couch, the wine bottle sweating on the coffee table. 7 p.m. became 8 p.m. 8 p.m. became 9:30. My text went from cheerful to concerned. Asterisk. "Hey babe. Where are you? Got a surprise asterisk." Asterisk. "Everything okay? Getting worried." Asterisk. Asterisk. "Mandy, call me." Asterisk. At 1015, her keys finally rattled in the lock. She walked in, flushed and smiling, smelling faintly of beer and a cologne that wasn't mine. Her smile died when she saw me on the couch. "Johnny. What are you doing home so early?" Not "hey honey," not "oh my god, I'm so sorry." It was an accusation. "I wanted to surprise you," I said, my voice flat. I gestured to the cold takeout containers on the counter. "We were supposed to have dinner." "Oh shit," she said, not looking at me. She dropped her purse on the floor. "I'm so sorry." The team went out for drinks after the presentation. It completely slipped my mind. The team, or Mark, the name just came out. It tasted like acid. Her head snapped up. Her eyes were hard. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means you're out with him a lot, Mandy. It means you smell like his cologne and you forgot you were even married tonight." "Oh my god, you are so paranoid," she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You're never here. You're always working, always obsessed with the business. For once, I go out and have some fun, and you get possessive. You can't have it both ways, Johnny." She spun a whole narrative. I was the absent husband. The workaholic who didn't care. She twisted my sacrifice into neglect. My love into a cage. And the worst part is, I almost believed her. I spent that entire night apologizing for wanting to have dinner with my own wife. I was the one who slept on the couch, feeling guilty. The next few weeks were cold. We were roommates living in the ruins of a relationship. We spoke in pleasantries. "Have a good day. Don't forget to take out the trash." The passion was gone, replaced by a brittle, polite silence that was 1,000 times louder than shouting. I felt it slipping. Everything I was working for was turning to sand in my hands. I told myself it was a rough patch. I told myself to just work harder, finish the next big project, and then I'd have time to fix us. I'd buy us a vacation. I'd make it right. Then came the Tuesday. It was a normal night. I was cleaning up after dinner, a silent meal of leftovers eaten while watching TV, and she was standing by the window staring out at the streetlights. The air was thick with things unsaid. My back was to her when she finally spoke. Her voice small, fragile. "Johnny." I turned around, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "Yeah." She wouldn't look at me. Her gaze was fixed on something far away. "We need to talk." My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew. In that instant, I knew the foundation was gone, the walls were crumbling, and the roof was about to cave in on my head. I walked over and sat on the edge of the sofa, the fake leather cool against my skin. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Talk." She finally turned from the window. Her face was pale, her eyes glistening. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months, and took a deep, shaky breath. "I did something," she started. "Something terrible." "I slept with Mark," she said. The words didn't land. They just hung in the air between us, ugly and foreign. My brain tried to file them somewhere, but there was no folder for this. The silence stretched until it hummed. When I asked. My voice sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. A few times. The last time was Friday night. Friday night? The night I bought Thai food? The night I sat on the couch worrying about her? The night I apologized to Times or Asterisk? The rage was a physical thing, a hot wave that started in my stomach and surged up into my throat. I stood up, my fists clenched so tight my nails bit into my palms. I saw the blueprint of our future, the colonial, the kids, J&A, contracting all of it, burning down to ash. "Get out," I said. It was a growl. "Johnny, please. Get your things and get out of my house." The next 6 months were a black hole. The divorce was a blur of paperwork and venom. She tried to come after the business Times, our Times business, but the company was in my name alone. She got half the savings I'd been building for Times, our Times down payment. A parting gift. I lived in a ghost town of our apartment. Her smell lingered in the closet, her favorite mug was still in the cabinet. I worked on autopilot, framing walls and installing cabinets for other people's perfect lives. Then I'd come home, open a beer, and stare at the wall until it was time to open another one. The thought of ending it was a constant, quiet hum in the back of my mind. It seemed so much easier than this. Then breathing. Then feeling the weight of it all every single second. My sister Sarah would call every day. I'd let it go to voicemail. She started just showing up, bringing groceries I wouldn't eat, and forcing me to take a shower. One Saturday, she didn't come alone. She had my niece and nephew with her 6-year-old twins, Liam and Chloe. They tore into the apartment like a hurricane of pure, unfiltered life. They immediately found my dog Buster and started a game of chase that involved more giggling than running. I was sitting on the couch, my usual spot, when Chloe ran up and handed me a crayon drawing. It was a stick figure with a beard me and a lumpy brown dog standing in front of a crooked house under a giant smiling sun. "It's for you, Uncle Johnny," she said, beaming. Liam ran over. "Mine's better," he declared, shoving his own masterpiece in my face. I looked at their faces so full of hope and uncomplicated joy. They weren't looking at a broken man. They were looking at their uncle. In that moment, something shifted. It was the first glimmer of light in the darkness. I was their uncle. I was Buster's owner. I was somebody's son. I wasn't just Amanda's ex-husband. The suicidal thoughts weren't gone, but for the first time, a reason to fight them back felt real. That Monday, I woke up and didn't reach for a beer. I looked at myself in the mirror. I'd lost 30 pounds. My eyes were sunken, dark pits. The man staring back at me was a stranger I hated. I hated that he'd let her do this to him. I hated that he'd given up. Enough. The first call was to a therapist my sister had recommended. I booked an appointment for that afternoon and another for Wednesday. The second action was on my phone. I went to her contact. Blocked. I went to Instagram. Blocked. Facebook. Blocked. Every digital doorway back to her I slammed shut and deadbolted. It was a declaration of war. Not on her, but on the part of me that was still waiting for her to come back and fix what she'd broken. That afternoon, I walked into the therapist's office. It was awkward and raw. I talked, she listened. I left with a prescription for an antidepressant and a sliver of hope. The change wasn't a lightning strike. It was a slow, grueling grind. Every morning was a choice. I chose to get up. I chose to take Buster for a long walk instead of letting him out in the yard. I chose to go to the gym, channeling all the rage and grief into the cold, unforgiving weight of a barbell. The first time I deadlifted, the strain felt like it was tearing me apart, but as I dropped the weight with a crash, I felt a release. A flicker of power. I poured myself into the business. I took the A out of J and A contracting. It was just my company now. My legacy. I worked harder than ever, but this time it wasn't for a phantom future with her. It was for me. I hired 2 new guys. I landed a contract to build a custom home from the ground up. My hands were cracked and raw again, but now it felt like healing. It was hard. There were days the depression was a heavy blanket I couldn't throw off. Days I'd see a couple holding hands and feel that familiar sharp stab of pain. But I kept going to therapy. I kept lifting. I kept building. 6 months in, I looked in the mirror again. The stranger was gone. I saw my own eyes looking back at me, clearer and harder than before. I decided it was time. I downloaded Hinge. 1 year later, I was standing on the deck of the custom home I'd just finished handing the keys to the new owners. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. My business had doubled its revenue. I was in the best shape of my life. "It's beautiful, Johnny." "Truly," the husband said, shaking my hand. I smiled. "Enjoy it." Later that night, I met my girlfriend Kate for dinner. She was a landscape architect I'd met on Hinge. She was smart, funny, and had eyes that crinkled at the corners when she laughed. She listened when I talked about work, asking questions about joist spacing and wood grains. When I told her about my past, she didn't flinch. She just took my hand and said, "Her loss." Simple as that. Sitting across from her, watching her tell a story, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't thought was possible. This wasn't a replacement for the old dream. This was better. This was real. The revenge, if you can call it that, came quietly. An email would pop up every few months. The sender, Amanda Miller, her maiden name. I never opened them. The subject lines were enough. "Thinking of you, can we talk? I miss you." I'd see her tagged in photos on mutual friends' feeds. She'd gained a lot of weight. Her smile looked forced. I heard through the grapevine she and Mark hadn't lasted 6 months. She was alone, working the same job, living in a small apartment across town. She was spying on my life while I was busy living it. I hit delete without a second thought. There was no satisfaction, no malice. Just nothing. She was a ghost from a different life. The old me thought happiness was a destination you build for someone else. A white picket fence, a mortgage, a shared last name. I was wrong. It's not a house you build. It's a foundation you lay inside yourself brick by painful brick. And when you build it right, you realize you're the one you were fighting for all along. It does get better. It gets so much better.
Story 9.
Please, Lisa. It would mean the world to me. My brother John had his puppy dog eyes on full blast. The ones he'd used to get out of trouble since he was 6. We were sitting in my small apartment, the scent of fresh paint still hanging in the air from my weekend project, and he was dropping a bomb on my wedding plans. "John, I already have 5 bridesmaids," I said, trying to keep my voice even. my childhood best friends, my cousin, my fiance's sister. The numbers are perfect. So what's one more? For me, Sarah feels left out. Sarah. Of course. His girlfriend of 2 years. The human equivalent of a designer handbag, expensive, a little stiff, and mainly for show. I couldn't stand her. And the feeling I knew was mutual. The last time I saw her, she'd spotted my reusable grocery bags from Walmart in the backseat of my car and smirked. "Oh, Lisa," she'd said, her voice dripping with pity. "You're so practical." It wasn't a compliment. But this was my brother. My only sibling. I could see the desperation in his eyes, the frantic hope that the two most important women in his life could just pretend to get along for my sake. I sighed, a long, drawn-out sound of defeat. Fine. She can be a bridesmaid. But John, she has to actually be times a bridesmaid. She has to show up, wear the dress, and not make everything about her. His face lit up. She will, I promise. Thank you, Lisa. You won't regret this. Spoiler alert, I would. My maid of honor, Chloe, was a saint. She added Sarah to the bridesmaids group chat without a single complaint, though I knew she felt the same way I did. The chat, Lisa's last fling, immediately blew up with excited messages. We were heading to Miami for a long weekend, and the girls were already planning. Chloe, being the organizational wizard she is, laid out the plan for the final night. Chloe, okay ladies, final night dinner details. We're going to a super chic place on the water, so let's get glam. I'm thinking a group photo theme. Everyone wear pink. Any shade, any style, just make it pink so we look like a cohesive, fabulous squad for Lisa. The chat erupted. Jenna OMG love. I have the perfect hot pink dress. Maria. Found a rose gold sequin number? Does that count? Chloe, yes, rose gold is perfect. I watched the screen waiting. Then Sarah's little text bubble appeared. Sarah, cute idea, Chloe. Very bubblegum. I rolled my eyes so hard I think I saw my own brain. Classic Sarah. A backhanded compliment wrapped in a dismissive little bow. But then she followed it up. Sarah, Jenna, that dress sounds amazing. Is it the one from Revolve That? Jenna. Yes. How did you know? Sarah, I have it in black. You'll look stunning. There it was. Undeniable proof. She saw the memo. She engaged with the memo. She knew the damn dress code was pink. I screenshotted the exchange, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. I didn't know why I did it, just a gut feeling that I'd need it later. The first 2 days in Miami were fine. Tense, but fine. Sarah mostly kept to herself, scrolling on her phone by the pool while the rest of us laughed and shared stories. She made little digs here and there, commenting on how my swimsuit was a brave choice and asking if the cheap rosé we were drinking was giving anyone else a headache. We all just ignored her, determined to not let her ruin the vibe. Then came the final night. The big dinner. We were all in our hotel suite, a tornado of hairspray, makeup palettes, and of course pink dresses. Jenna was in her hot pink mini, Maria was sparkling in rose gold, and Chloe looked incredible in a silky fuchsia slip. I'd chosen a soft blush pink gown that made me feel, for the first time in a while, like a bride. We were all giddy, taking selfies and blasting music when a text came through on the group chat. It was from Sarah. Sarah, hey girls, so sorry. A last-minute work emergency just came up. I have to hop on a call. I'll meet you at the restaurant, but I'm going to be late. Start without me. A collective groan went through the room. Work emergency? On a Saturday night, Maria muttered, zipping up her dress. Just be glad we get an extra hour without her, Jenna said, and we all laughed. I felt a sliver of relief. Maybe she'd just skip the dinner entirely. We could have one perfect, drama-free night. We arrived at the restaurant and it was stunning. Open air right on the water with white tablecloths and twinkling fairy lights everywhere. the hostess led our very pink-clad group to a prime table. We ordered a round of spicy margaritas and the mood was electric. For an hour, I forgot all about Sarah. We were loud, we were laughing, and I was surrounded by the women I loved most. To Lisa, Chloe toasted, holding her glass high. The most beautiful, kind, and patient bride-to-be in the world. We all clinked our glasses, and in that moment I felt pure happiness. That's when I saw her. She wasn't walking, she was striding, making an entrance. Every head in the restaurant turned to watch her. My brother's girlfriend, my bridesmaid by obligation, Sarah. She wasn't wearing pink. She was in a floor-length, backless white sequin gown. It clung to her body like a second skin shimmering under the restaurant lights. As if that wasn't enough, the bottom of the dress exploded into a cloud of white tulle, a miniature train that swept the floor behind her. And perched on top of her perfectly coiffed hair was a delicate, glittering tiara. She looked more like a bride than I did. More than I ever would. My friends' laughter died in their throats. Jenna's jaw was literally hanging open. We all just stared stunned into silence as she glided toward our table, a smug little smile playing on her lips. A waitress who had just been approaching to take our order stopped and beamed at our table, her eyes landing first on me in my pale pink, then on the radiant vision in white. "Oh, how lovely," the waitress chirped, completely oblivious. "Are we celebrating a joint bachelorette party tonight?" The waitress's cheerful voice felt like a slap. My blood ran cold, then hot. Every ounce of joy from the evening evaporated, replaced by a white-hot humming rage. A joint bachelorette party. She had turned my night, my celebration, into a spectacle starring herself. Chloe recovered first. She gave the waitress a tight, dismissive smile. "No." "Just the one," she said, gesturing pointedly at me. "For Lisa. The actual bride." The waitress's face fell, her eyes darting between me in my blush pink and Sarah in her bridal armor. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I just..." "It's fine," I bit out, my voice dangerously low. Sarah finally reached the table, feigning a breathless innocence. "Sorry, I'm late. The call ran forever." "What did I miss?" She slid into the empty chair, her tulle skirt crunching against the seat. The tiara on her head caught the light and sent a tiny mocking sparkle directly into my eye. No one answered her. The silence was thick and heavy. Maria stared at Sarah's dress like it was a poisonous snake. Jenna was just slowly shaking her head, a look of pure disgust on her face. What Sarah asked, her voice laced with manufactured confusion. "Is something wrong?" That was it. I snapped. "What's wrong, Sarah?" I asked, my voice shaking with fury. "What's wrong is that you look like you're about to walk down the aisle at your own wedding." At times, my times, bachelorette party. She placed a hand on her chest, her expression a perfect mask of wounded surprise. "Oh my God, Lisa, this old thing. It's just a cocktail dress. I can't believe you'd think I was trying to upstage you." "I would never." A white sequin gown with a tulle train and a tiara as a cocktail dress? Jenna scoffed from across the table. "In what universe?" "I just wanted to look nice for your big night," Sarah insisted, her voice getting louder, playing to the nearby tables. "I feel so attacked right now." The photographer Chloe had hired for an hour arrived right then, a cheerful guy with a huge camera. "Ready for some group shots, ladies?" "Absolutely," I said, standing up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. I looked directly at Sarah. "We are. You're not in them." Her jaw dropped. For the first time, a flicker of genuine shock crossed her face. "What?" "Why not?" "Because the theme was pink," I said, my voice ice. "We're taking pink-themed photos." "I didn't get the memo," she cried, the lie slipping out so easily. "My work call was so crazy I must have missed the text." The knot of unease in my stomach that had prompted me to screenshot her message tightened into a vindicated fist. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and pulled up the image. I didn't say a word. I just turned the screen towards her. There it was in black and white. Her own words. Cute idea, Chloe. Very bubblegum. And her follow-up discussing Jenna's pink dress from Revolve. Her face went pale. The smugness, the faux innocence. It all dissolved, leaving behind a pinched, ugly look of being caught. She stared at the phone, then at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Get out of the way, Sarah, Chloe said, her voice leaving no room for argument. She, Jenna, and Maria stood up flanking me. We were a wall of furious pink. We walked over to a spot by the water, the photographer looking bewildered, but following our lead. Sarah was left alone at the table, a shimmering white monument to her own narcissism. We took the pictures. We smiled, we posed, we linked arms. In every shot, we were a vibrant, cohesive group, and I was the undeniable center. There was no confusing who the bride was. From the corner of my eye, I could see Sarah watching us, her arms crossed, her face a thundercloud. It was the most satisfying and miserable photo shoot of my life. The flight home was silent. Sarah sat 3 rows behind us and didn't say a word. The moment my plane landed, my phone buzzed. It was John. I ignored it, knowing what was coming. It buzzed again. And again. By the time I was in the taxi home, I had 5 missed calls and a string of furious texts. What the hell did you do to Sarah? She's in tears. Said you and your friends bullied her all night. Answer your phone, Lisa. I waited until I was inside my apartment, the door locked securely behind me. I took a deep breath and called him. He picked up on the first ring. What is wrong with you? He yelled, his voice raw. She flew all the way to Miami for you, and you treat her like that. You deliberately excluded her and humiliated her in front of everyone. She humiliated me, John, I shot back, my own voice rising. She showed up to my bachelorette dinner in a wedding dress and a tiara. It was a white dress. So what? You don't own the color white. Sarah said you were all just jealous because she looked better than you. The accusation knocked the wind out of me. Are you listening to yourself? She lied, John. She said she never got the memo about wearing pink, but she literally discussed it in the group chat. I have the receipts. Receipts? He scoffed. This isn't a courtroom, Lisa. It's our family. You've turned into a complete bridezilla. This whole wedding has made you crazy and cruel. The word bridezilla hung in the air between us. It was the ultimate insult. The one designed to dismiss a woman's valid anger as hormonal hysteria. All the frustration, the hurt, the years of swallowing Sarah's little digs for his sake, it all came pouring out. Fine, I said, my voice dangerously calm. If I'm a bridezilla, then I'll be one. Sarah is no longer a bridesmaid. She's uninvited from the wedding. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then a low, menacing reply. If she's not welcome, then neither am I. He hung up. I stood in my living room, phone in my hand shaking. My brother, my only sibling, was choosing her. He was choosing the woman who deliberately tried to ruin my celebration over his own sister. The next day, a text landed in the family group chat from John. My mom, my dad, me. For your information, Sarah and I won't be at Father's Day brunch this weekend. We don't feel comfortable being around people who think it's okay to bully and exclude family. My mother called me instantly frantic. I explained everything, my voice cracking as I recounted the white dress, the tiara, the lie. I sent her the screenshot. She was horrified, but also devastated. Your brother is just blinded by her honey. Please, can't you just be the bigger person and apologize to smooth things over? Apologize. For what? For not letting her walk all over me. Now I'm sitting here staring at the Father's Day card I bought for my dad, wondering if he'll be celebrating it without his son. The wedding is in 2 months. John and I haven't spoken. I heard from a cousin that things between him and Sarah are strained, that he can't understand why she won't just let it go. Part of me feels a grim satisfaction. The other part, a much larger part, is hollowed out with grief. I stood up for myself, but in doing so, I might have just detonated my entire family. And a tiny, insidious voice in the back of my head keeps asking times, was it worth it? Did you go too far? Asterisk.
Story Teen.
My mother, an artist to her core, saw life as a canvas. Her final project wasn't paint and clay. It was us. Her children. She'd named my siblings and me with a deliberate, almost obsessive poetry, Liam, Olivia, Violet. L-O-V. She died before she could complete her masterpiece, before she could find her E. You finish it for me, baby, she'd whispered, her hand a skeletal weight on my swollen belly. Her eyes clouded with morphine still held that creative fire. Find the E. It has to be one of mine. A grandchild. My blood. A promise made in a sterile beeping room is a promise etched in stone. So when I found out I was having a girl, it felt like destiny. A sign from Mom. The legacy would be safe. I was 6 months along when my sister Liv called. Her voice was tight, a wire pulled taut. Are you sitting down? She asked. Liv, I'm perpetually sitting down. What's wrong? I rubbed a hand over my stomach, a subconscious gesture of protection. Dad and Bethany are having a baby. The air left my lungs in a silent rush. Dad. And Bethany. My mother's nurse. The woman he'd been sleeping with while Mom's masterpiece of a life was fading to gray in the next room. They'd gotten married 6 months after the funeral, a move so grotesque it felt like a slap. Oh, was all I could manage. My throat closed up. When? She's about 4 months along. Just announced it on Facebook. Liv's sigh was pure static. That's not the worst part, Clara. I waited. The silence stretched, filled with the hum of my refrigerator and the frantic thumping of my own heart. They're planning on naming it with an E name, Liv finally spit out. To complete Mom's legacy and honor her memory. The phone felt slick in my hand. I gripped it tighter. They what? You heard me. Bethany posted this whole saccharine novel about how she always admired Mom's artistry and wants to give Dad the gift of completing her LOVE vision. A hot, acidic wave of rage surged up my throat. Bethany, who used to bring my mother lukewarm tea and steal my father's glances over the sickbed. Bethany, who wore a pair of my mother's earrings to the wedding. Asterisk. That times Bethany was going to honor my mother. It's a performance, Clara, the whole thing. She's trying to erase Mom. He can't, I said, my voice shaking. He can't let her do that. Mom told me. She told me times. I times had to do it. One of us. Her blood. Try telling him that. I did. He said it's beautiful that all 4 LOVE children will be siblings all in the same generation. He said it's what Mom would have wanted. Mom would have set his car on fire, I snapped. Liv let out a bitter laugh. You know it, I know it. But Dad's living in some fantasy land where his affair was a tragic romance and Bethany is his reward for being a grieving widower. My apartment, usually a sunny, hopeful space filled with baby gear and half-finished nursery projects, suddenly felt like a cage. The little stuffed elephant on the rocking chair seemed to be mocking me. This wasn't just about a name anymore. It was a heist. They were stealing my mother's final wish, twisting it into a monument for their own tawdry affair. She's not family. Clara Liv's voice was low and fierce. She's the woman who sat in our kitchen drinking our coffee, while Mom was upstairs forgetting our names. Don't you let her take this. I won't. The words were a vow. Later that day, a text message lit up my phone. It was from Bethany. My thumbs hovered over the screen, trembling with a mixture of anger and dread. Asterisk, Clara Honey. Just heard the most wonderful news from your dad that you're having a girl too. Isn't it a sign? 2 new little angels to heal our family. I know how much you wanted to use an E name for your mom, but I hope you understand why it's so important for your father that this baby, his child, completes the set. It would mean the world to him. We can find another beautiful name for your little one together. Maybe one that honors me. Let's be a family again. Asterisk. The winky face emoji was a digital shiv to the ribs. Asterisk. Honors me times. The audacity was breathtaking. She wasn't just stealing the name. She was asking me to hand it over with a smile and thank her for the privilege. This wasn't about honoring Mom. This was about replacing her. Staking a claim, Bethany wasn't just marrying my father. She was trying to colonize our family history, planting her flag right on top of my mother's grave. I screenshotted the text and sent it to Liv without comment. Her reply was instantaneous. Asterisk. That manipulative witch. Asterisk. Followed by asterisk. What are you going to do, asterisk? I stared at my reflection in the dark phone screen. My face was pale, my eyes hard. The promise I made to my mother echoed in my head, no longer a whisper, but a battle cry. This wasn't a request. It was her last will and testament. I pushed myself off the couch, my movements stiff with resolve. I grabbed my purse, my keys. The casual tone, the winking emoji, the disingenuous plea for unity, it all clicked into place. This was a declaration of war. And she had underestimated her enemy. I had to see him. I had to look my father in the eye and make him understand what he was about to destroy. The engine was off, but my hands were still clenched around the steering wheel, knuckles white. I was parked across the street from my mother's house. My house. Now it was just his house. Bethany's house. Through the big picture window, the one Mom always filled with stained glass birds she'd made, I could see the flat, sterile glow of a television. I didn't call first. I just walked up the stone path, my key sliding into the lock with a familiar grating sound. They didn't even change the locks. The sheer arrogance of it. They were on the couch, my dad's arm slung around Bethany's shoulders. She was wearing one of his old flannel shirts, a detail so domestically cloying it made my teeth ache. They both looked up, startled. "Clara," my dad said, getting to his feet. "What are you doing here? You should have called." "This is still my house, isn't it?" I asked, my voice flat. I looked at Bethany, whose hand had gone instinctively to her own small, neat bump. "I got your text. The one with the winky face." Bethany flushed a blotchy, unattractive red. "I was just trying to reach out. To smooth things over." "There's nothing to smooth," I said, turning my full attention to my father. "You know what Mom asked me to do? You were in the room." He ran a hand through his thinning hair, a gesture of exasperation I'd known my whole life. "Clara, don't be dramatic. We talked about this. It's a beautiful tribute. All 4 of them, siblings. It's poetic." "It's a lie." I shot back the words like stones in my mouth. Mom's poetry was about her times bloodline, her children and her children's children. Not her replacements. The word replacement hung in the air. Dad flinched. Bethany, however, saw her opening. She stood up, her face, a carefully constructed mask of gentle concern. "Clara, I know this is hard for you," she began, her voice dripping with faux empathy. "I loved your mother too. I admired her so much. All I want is to honor her and make your father happy. I know she would want him to be happy." She took a step towards me. "Please don't take this from him. Let him have this one thing. It would help him heal." That was it. The breaking point. The disingenuous plea. Using my mother's memory as a shield for her own conquest. A hot white rage, pure and clean, sliced through my grief. You don't get to say her name, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. And you don't get to decide what she would have wanted. You're the nurse who slept with a patient's husband. That's all you'll ever be in this story. My father's face went dark. That's enough, Clara. Apologize to Bethany. No. I looked from his face to hers, this woman who was colonizing my life. And I felt nothing but the cold certainty of a general before a battle. I'm not giving you the name. It's mine. It was promised to me. I turned and walked out, not waiting for a response. The lock clicking shut behind me sounded like a starting pistol. 2 weeks later, Liv called breathless. You are not going to believe this. Try me. I was folding a tiny onesie my back, protesting with every movement. Aunt Carol. You know how she talks to everyone. She was on the phone with Dad's sister, and apparently Bethany had her big 20-week scan. Liv paused for dramatic effect. It's a girl. I stopped folding. What? Yup. They were so sure it was a boy. Dad had been telling everyone they were going with Elliot. They're scrambling now. They don't have a girl's E name picked out. A slow, audacious smile spread across my face. My own due date was a ticking clock just over 2 weeks away. But they were back at square one. It was a gift. An opening. My mother, from wherever she was, had just handed me a tactical advantage. They just lost their head start, I murmured. What was that, Liv asked. Nothing. Hey, Liv, I think I'm having a contraction. My daughter was born 36 hours later, a furious, beautiful little thing with a full head of dark hair just like my mom's. She arrived in a whirlwind 2 weeks early as if she knew she was on a deadline. When the nurse came in with the paperwork, I didn't hesitate. I wrote her name in firm, clear letters, my hand steady for the first time in months. Elise. Lova. I texted a picture to a group chat with my dad and Liv. Just the photo, no caption. My tiny girl swaddled in a hospital blanket. Complete. Liv's reply was a string of heart emojis. My father's came 10 minutes later. It was a private message. Asterisk. How could you? You did this on purpose. You stole this from your mother, from all of us. You took her beautiful legacy and made it about your own petty, childish anger. Asterisk. The words were meant to hurt, to curdle my joy. But looking at Elise sleeping on my chest, I felt a profound sense of peace. I hadn't stolen anything. I had reclaimed what was ours. I'd kept my promise. The real fallout began the next day. Aunts and uncles from my dad's side started texting, calling me selfish, disrespectful, a witch who couldn't stand to see her father happy. I ignored them all. Then, Bethany went public. She posted a black and white, artfully filtered photo of her ultrasound print. The caption was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive warfare. Asterisk. Sometimes the most beautiful art takes a little longer to finish. We've been blessed with a little girl, and we've decided to take our time to find the perfect name to complete a very special family legacy. Patience is a virtue. The real E-Baby is on her way to bring our family the healing it deserves. Number 4 is love. Number family legacy. Number honoring her memory. Asterisk. The comment section was a cesspool. Sympathy poured in for the poor grieving widower and his angelic new wife whose beautiful tribute had been sabotaged by a bitter, jealous daughter. People who had known me my entire life were liking the post, leaving comments about how disappointed my mother would be in me. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Liv was sending me screenshots, her own furious comments lost in the sycophantic flood. It was a coordinated attack, a public shaming. They were rewriting the narrative, painting me as the villain who had desecrated her own mother's memory. I sat in the dim light of the nursery, the blue glow of my phone illuminating Elisa's sleeping face. The stress was a physical weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The victory felt hollow, the peace shattered. Was it worth it? Was this vicious public war worth a name on a birth certificate? My daughter stirred her tiny hand wrapping around my finger. Her grip was surprisingly strong. I looked down at her at this perfect final piece of my mother's masterpiece. This wasn't just a name. This was a promise. This was Mom's last stand. And she'd chosen me as her soldier. Bethany's post was still open on my screen. Asterisk. The real E-baby is on her way. Asterisk. A cold, hard resolve settled in my bones, replacing the anxiety. They wanted a war, fine. They had forgotten one crucial detail. My mother wasn't just an artist. She was a fighter. And I was without a doubt her daughter. Story 11. When I married Clara, I knew her sister Chloe was part of the deal. It was a package deal, a 2-for-1, and I was okay with that. Genuinely. Clara had practically raised Chloe after their mom passed away, stepping into a maternal role when she was barely out of her teens herself. It was one of the things I loved about her, that fierce, unwavering loyalty. Chloe is 20 now. She has a neurological condition that affects her coordination and sometimes makes social situations awkward. It's not severe, but it's there. A constant background hum to her life. In the beginning, I saw her through Clara's eyes, a sweet, slightly fragile girl who just needed a little extra help navigating the world. So when we'd go out for dinner and Chloe would join, I'd pick up the tab without a second thought. When her laptop died, we replaced it. It was just what you did for family. The shift was gradual. It started around the time Chloe turned 19 and decided college wasn't for her. I'm going to be a freelance graphic designer, she announced one night over a pizza I was paying for. I've got clients lining up already. Clara beamed, her face glowing with pride. That's amazing, Chloe. We're so proud of you. I was supportive too. It sounded like a great plan. But the clients were always just about to pay. The big projects were always just around the corner. A year went by. Chloe still lived at home with her dad, but she was at our apartment constantly. She ate our food, used our Wi-Fi, and talked a big game about her booming career, yet I never saw a single dollar from it. The first real crack appeared on my birthday. We went out to a steakhouse, my choice. Chloe ordered the lobster tail add-on without blinking. When the bill came, she was deep in her phone scrolling through Instagram. Clara just slid the check over to my side of the table. So, what'd you get me? I asked Chloe, trying to keep it light. She looked up, a little startled, as if the thought had just occurred to her. Oh shoot. It's coming tomorrow. Amazon delivery is so slow right now. It never came. Clara bought me a watch from both of them 2 days later. Chloe chipped in, she said, but her eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. I knew she was covering for her. I let it go. But it kept happening. She'd ask to borrow $20 for gas and never pay it back. She'd come over for movie night and ask what we were ordering for dinner, as if her inclusion in our payment were a given. She even started forwarding us her medical bills, specialist co-pays, prescription costs. My insurance is crap, she'd text Clara, and Clara would immediately Zelle her the money from our joint account. Babe, I said one night, scrolling through our bank statement. We spent almost $400 on Chloe last month. Not including the dinners. Clara got defensive instantly. She needs it, Mateo. Her condition isn't cheap to manage, and she's just getting her business off the ground. Is she, though? I asked, a little sharper than I intended. Because I haven't seen any evidence of it. Does she ever show you any of her work or any invoices? She doesn't have to prove anything to you, Clara snapped. She's my sister. We take care of her. That was the end of the conversation. "We take care of her" became Clara's trump card, the conversation killer she'd pull out whenever I got close to questioning the one-way flow of cash out of our account and into Chloe's life. I resented it, but I loved my wife and I knew how deep her bond with her sister ran. So I bit my tongue and worked a little more overtime. Then Clara got pregnant. Everything changed. The world snapped into a terrifyingly sharp focus. It wasn't about us anymore. It was about our daughter. Our future. My future, specifically as the sole provider, while Clara was on unpaid maternity leave. I started seeing every dollar with new eyes. A $30 dinner for Chloe wasn't just a dinner. It was a box of diapers. The $150 for her urgent car repair wasn't a repair. It was a week's worth of formula. The money we were pouring into her black hole of a life was money being siphoned directly from my daughters. The day our baby Sophia was born was the best day of my life. Holding her, this tiny, perfect person who depended on me for everything, I felt a switch flip in my soul. A primal protective instinct I never knew I had roared to life. My family was now me, Clara, and this little girl. Everyone else was outside the circle. Chloe came to the hospital, of course. She held Sophia for a minute, took a bunch of selfies, and then started telling Clara about a concert she wanted to go to next month. "The tickets are like $200, she sighed. "It's insane. I don't know how I'm going to swing it." She looked right at Clara. A pointed, expectant look. I saw Clara, exhausted and hormonal but still in default big sister mode, open her mouth to say, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out." "No," I said, stepping between them. My voice was quiet but hard. "You can't afford it, so you can't go." The silence in the room was deafening. Chloe looked at me like I'd just slapped her. Clara's eyes flashed with anger. It was the first time I'd ever drawn a hard line, and nobody liked it. That feeling, that simmering rage, just grew. We were 2 weeks in. I was barely sleeping, working from home with a crying baby in the next room and stressing about the mortgage. We were living paycheck to paycheck for the first time in our lives. Every grocery run was a tightrope walk. In my mind, Chloe transformed. She was no longer the sweet girl with a disability. She was a leech. A 20-year-old freeloader who'd been coddled into a state of permanent helplessness by the one person I needed on my team. Last night, Clara was trying to soothe a screaming Sophia, rocking her back and forth, her face a mask of exhaustion. Her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Chloe. I was right there. I couldn't help but see it. It was a link to a brand new top-of-the-line MacBook Pro. The $1,000 one. Underneath the message read times. "My laptop is being so slow I can't get any work done. Can we get this? I need it for that big Australian client project." Asterisk. I watched Clara's face. I saw the conflict, the exhaustion, and then the familiar heartbreaking resignation. She typed back times. "Let me talk to Mateo. We'll figure something out." Asterisk. That was it. That was the moment something in me broke. The calm, rational part of my brain just shut off, replaced by white-hot fury. She was going to do it. Even now, with our daughter in her arms and our finances in shambles, she was going to find a way to give her sister another $1,000 handout. I watched her put the phone down and turn her attention back to Sophia, humming a soft lullaby. My heart was pounding a war drum against my ribs. I stood there for a long moment, the screen of her phone glowing on the dark granite countertop. Then I took a deep breath. "Clara," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Put the baby in her crib. We need to talk, now." Clara's shoulders tensed. She clutched Sophia a little tighter, her back still to me. "She's almost asleep, Mateo. Can't this wait?" "No," I said, my voice, leaving no room for argument. "It can't. Put her down." She shot me a look over her shoulder, a mixture of defiance and exhaustion. For a second, I thought she was going to refuse. But then she saw my face. She must have seen that the calm, reasonable husband she knew was gone, replaced by a stranger standing in our kitchen. Wordlessly, she walked into the nursery. I heard the soft click of the door. When she returned, her arms were crossed over her chest. What? What? Was so important it couldn't wait. I picked up her phone from the counter and held it up. The message from Chloe was still glowing on the screen. This. $1,000 laptop for her big Australian client. Are you kidding me? Her jaw tightened. She needs it for work, Mateo. Her current one is old. What work, Clara? The question exploded out of me louder than I intended. The imaginary work. The freelance career that hasn't produced a single paycheck in over a year. When are you going to wake up? You're not helping her. You're crippling her. And she's pulling us down with her. That is not fair, she cried, her voice cracking. She has a disability. Things are harder for her. I thought you understood that. I do understand it, I shot back, stepping closer. What I don't understand is why her disability means she's entitled to my paycheck. To Sophia's future. We are barely making it, Clara. I'm looking at our budget every single night trying to figure out how to stretch it another week. And you're ready to drop $1,000 on a brand new toy for your sister so she can continue to pretend to be a graphic designer. It's not a toy, it's an investment in her future. It's a lie, I yelled, slamming my hand down on the counter. The sound echoed in the small kitchen. It's all a lie. She's not a freelancer. She's a professional freeloader, and you're her number one enabler. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. How can you say that? She's my sister. My sweet sister. The word sweet was like a lit match on gasoline. Sweet. She's a leech, Clara. A 20-year-old parasite who has learned that all she has to do is sigh about how expensive something is, and her big sister will swoop in and pay for it with her husband's money. My husband, she spat her tears, turning to anger. It was our money. No. It's my times money now. I'm the only one earning it, remember. While you're on leave, every single dollar that comes into this house comes from me breaking my back, staying up until 2 a.m, stressing about clients and deadlines, all to support my family. And my family is you and Sophia. Not your deadbeat sister. The word hung in the air between us, ugly and final. Clara flinched as if I'd hit her. Her face crumpled. I can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe you're this person. I can't believe you're this blind, I retorted, my voice dropping to a low, cold growl. This stops. All of it. It stops tonight. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice a trembling whisper. Ban her from the house. You can't do that. No. Something much more effective. I took a deep breath, the ultimatum, solidifying in my mind a terrible necessary weapon. You have a choice. Tomorrow, you are going to call Chloe. You are going to tell her the bank is closed. No more money. No more laptops, no more concert tickets, no more covering her bills. You are going to tell her that she is 20 years old and it's time she figured out how to support herself. You tell her to get a real job. Clara stared at me, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. I can't do that to her. It would crush her. Then I'll make the choice for you, I said, the words feeling like ice in my own mouth. If you don't do that, then I'm going to the bank tomorrow morning. I'm taking your name off our joint checking account. I'll open a separate account for you and transfer an allowance for groceries and baby supplies every week. That's it. When you go back to work and start earning your own paycheck again, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. But as long as it's my money supporting this family, not one more cent goes to her. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavier and more profound than any shouting. Clara's face went from shocked to wounded to utterly devastated. The color drained from her cheeks. She looked at me not as her husband, but as a monster. An allowance, she whispered, the word itself, a poison. You would put me, your wife, the mother of your child, on a times allowance. Times, like a teenager. If that's what it takes to protect our daughter, yes, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. I felt sick, but I couldn't back down. This was the line. This isn't about protecting Sophia, she said, her voice shaking with a rage so deep it was almost quiet. This is about control. This is about punishing me because you hate my sister. I don't hate your sister, I lied, because in that moment I think I did. I hate what she's doing to us, to you. No. This is you, Mateo. This is all you. She took a shaky step back as if she couldn't stand to be near me. You just threatened to take away my financial freedom 2 weeks after I gave birth to your child. Do you have any idea what you just did? I knew. It was a catastrophic move, a button you can't unpress. But the dam of my resentment had broken, and this was the flood. In my mind, it was a necessary evil. Chloe needed a shock to the system, and Clara needed to be wrenched from her orbit. It was tough love. It was survival. Clara just stared at me for another long moment, her eyes filled with a kind of betrayal I'd never seen before. Then, without another word, she turned and walked into our bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. It wasn't a slam. A slam would have meant there was still fire. The soft click was something worse. It was an ending. I stood alone in the kitchen, the silence buzzing in my ears. I looked at the phone on the counter at the picture of a ridiculously expensive laptop. Such a small thing to detonate a marriage. From the nursery, I heard Sophia begin to fuss a low whimper that quickly escalated into a cry. A few seconds later, I heard the bedroom door open and close, followed by Clara's soft footsteps heading to the nursery. She was going to our daughter. And I was out here completely alone, the enemy in my own home. I sank onto a kitchen stool, burying my head in my hands, listening to the muffled sound of my wife soothing our child, and I had never felt so right and so terribly catastrophically wrong in my entire life.
Story 12.
It started with the little things. The way her phone was always angled away from me. The late-night work emergencies from a woman who worked in marketing. The laughter that wasn't for me but for a glowing screen in a dark room. I wasn't a fool, but I was a husband. A father. You try to believe the best you know. You build a life for 15 years. You don't just torch it because of a weird vibe. We were sitting on the couch after the kids, Ben and Maya, were finally asleep. The TV was on some show she liked that I couldn't stand. I was trying to hold her hand, but it was like holding a fistful of wet sand. Limp. Unresponsive. What's wrong, Sarah? I asked, my thumb tracing circles on her knuckles. You seem far away. She pulled her hand back, tucking it under her leg. I'm just tired, Mark. It feels like more than tired. She let out a long theatrical sigh. The kind that says, times, here we go again, asterisk. Fine, you want to know, it's us. We're in a rut. The spark is just gone. The spark is gone. I felt my stomach clench. It's the cliche people use when they're too cowardly to say what they really mean. What does that even mean? We have a life, a family. We're not teenagers sneaking out to make out in a car. We build things. That's the spark. See, that's the problem, she said, finally looking at me. Her eyes were cold. You think building things is enough. I need to times something. She stood up and went to bed. I sat there in the blue light of the television, the canned laughter mocking me. She needed to feel something. I felt something right then, a cold, hard knot of dread. A week later, I got my proof. I came home early from work. A project wrapped ahead of schedule, and I was looking forward to surprising the kids. As I walked in, I heard Sarah in the kitchen on the phone. Her voice was different. Softer. Giddy. The voice she used with me back when we first met. I can't wait either, she was cooing. Just a few more things to get in order. He has no idea, Rick. No, he just thinks I'm stressed from work. Rick. The name hit me like a physical blow. Rick was a new director at her company. She'd mentioned him a few times. Super smart, she'd said. A real visionary. I'd thought nothing of it. I backed out the door silently, my heart hammering against my ribs, and walked around the block. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, just breathing. When I went back inside, I pretended I'd just arrived. She was at the counter smiling, chopping vegetables for dinner. A perfect picture of a happy wife. The duplicity was staggering. That night I waited. I waited until the house was still, until the only sounds were the hum of the refrigerator and the frantic beating of my own heart. Her laptop was on the coffee table, left open. An engraved anniversary gift from me. She'd always been careless with it. I sat down. The messaging app was still open. And there it was. 6 months of a life I knew nothing about. Asterisk, Rick, woke up thinking about you. Can't wait until this is our everyday. Asterisk. Asterisk, Sarah, me too. Last night was incredible. I've never felt that way before. Asterisk. Asterisk, Rick soon. Have you thought more about telling him? Asterisk. Asterisk, Sarah, I'm getting there. I tried to bring it up, told him the spark was gone. He doesn't get it. But I can't live this half-life much longer. Our future is worth the fight. Asterisk. Asterisk, our time's future. I scrolled up, my hands shaking. Pictures of them at a winery I didn't know she'd visited. Jokes about my boring taste in music. Plans for a trip to the coast after she'd finally left me. It wasn't just an affair. It was a replacement life, fully furnished and waiting for her to move in. I felt the floor drop out from under me. The woman I had built my world around was a stranger. An enemy living inside my home. I closed the laptop and walked upstairs. She was in bed scrolling on her phone, bathed in its white glow. She looked up, annoyed by the intrusion. What? I stood in the doorway, my voice dangerously calm. Who is Rick? Her face went blank. A flicker of panic, then a wall of defiance. She put the phone down. What are you talking about? Don't lie to me, Sarah. I saw the messages. All of them. The last 6 months. Silence. She just stared at me, the gears turning in her head, calculating her next move. The lie was dead, so she moved to a different strategy. Truth. The most brutal version of it. She took a deep breath and sat up, pulling the covers around her like armor. I'm glad you know, she said, her voice steady. I'm sorry you found out that way, but I'm not sorry it happened. I leaned against the doorframe, my legs threatening to give out. You're not sorry. No, she said, and for the first time she looked me straight in the eye. What I have with Rick? It's the deepest emotional connection I have ever felt with anyone. He sees me. The real me. With him I feel alive. Each word was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. Asterisk. The deepest emotional connection I have ever felt. Asterisk. 15 years, 2 kids, 1 mortgage, and 1,000 inside jokes, all erased by a 6-month fling with a visionary from her office. I pushed off the doorframe, my shock hardening into something else. Something cold and sharp. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. So that's it, you're just going to throw our family away. I don't know what I'm going to do, she said, a hint of frustration in her voice, as if I were the one being difficult. This is all happening so fast. Fast, I almost laughed. You've been planning a future with this guy behind my back for half a year. I walked over to the bed and stood over her. I wasn't trying to be intimidating, I was just trying to understand the stranger sitting in my wife's place. If there's any part of you that wants to save this marriage, any part at all, you'll do one thing for me. Right now. She narrowed her eyes, suspicious. What? Pick up your phone, I said, my voice low and even. Text him. Tell him it's over. That you made a mistake and you're choosing your family. Do it right here, right now, in front of me. This was it. The test. The one single action that could prove there was something left to salvage. She looked from me to her phone, then back to me. A sneer twisted her lips. You want to watch me, to control me. She shook her head, a bitter, dismissive laugh escaping her throat. God, you really are a controlling a-hole, aren't you? That was it. The moment the bomb, which had been ticking for 6 months, finally detonated. A controlling a-hole. Me. For asking the woman who'd shattered my life to prove she wanted to fix it. In that second, any lingering hope I had for reconciliation turned to dust. I didn't say another word. I just turned around, walked downstairs, grabbed a pillow and a blanket from the linen closet, and slept on the couch. The next few days were a masterclass in psychological warfare. She alternated between icy silence and saccharine sweet attempts at normalcy. Do you want me to pick up your dry cleaning, she'd ask, as if we hadn't just had a marriage-ending conversation. She was trying to rug sweep the whole thing to wait me out until I just forgot. The final straw came 3 days later. I walked into the kitchen, and she was leaning against the counter back to me, phone held low. I saw her shoulders shaking with silent laughter. I didn't even have to look. I knew who she was talking to. I just walked past her, grabbed my keys, and went to my car. I sat there for a minute, the engine off, and made 2 calls. The first was to the best divorce attorney in the city. The second was to my sister. She chose him, I said, my voice cracking for the first time. I'm on my way, was all she said. That Friday, a man in a cheap suit knocked on our door. I was in the living room with Ben and Maya building a Lego castle. Sarah answered it. Sarah Thompson, he asked. Yes. He handed her a thick manila envelope. You've been served. I didn't look up from the Lego tower, but I felt the heat of her gaze on me. The kids were oblivious. The fantasy was over. The real-world consequences, the ones she thought she was clever enough to avoid, had just shown up on her doorstep. She stormed into the room after the man left the papers, shaking in her hand. You filed, she hissed, her voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. You actually did it. I finally looked at her, my expression perfectly neutral. You made your choice, Sarah. I'm just making mine. Living together during the separation was hell, but I had a strategy. A friend of mine who'd been through a similar meat grinder told me about 2 concepts, the 180 and the gray rock. The 180 was simple, do the complete opposite of what she expects. Stop chasing, stop pleading, stop engaging, just detach. The gray rock method was my defense become as boring and unresponsive as a stone. It worked better than I could have imagined. I stopped asking about her day. I gave one-word answers to her questions. I focused entirely on the kids and myself. I started waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym before work. I reconnected with old friends for beers. I took the kids on weekend hikes. I was building a new life right in front of her, and my indifference was like acid to her ego. Where were you last night, she'd demand when I came home from a late dinner with buddies. Out, I'd say, walking past her to go tuck the kids in. She couldn't stand it. The sad, broken husband she could control was gone. In his place was a calm, confident stranger who didn't seem to need her for anything. Her affair partner Rick was her fantasy future. I was supposed to be her stable, predictable present. By refusing to play my part, I broke the entire dynamic. She wanted a quick, clean exit to her new life, and my lack of drama was actually helping her get it. The divorce negotiation was brutally efficient. We sat across from each other in a sterile conference room. I agreed to everything standard 50/50 custody, a fair division of assets. No fighting, no bitterness, I just wanted it done. She looked at me, confused, expecting a war. She didn't realize that my fight wasn't with her anymore. It was for my own future. Her side of the family treated me like a leper. At a school pickup, her mother looked right through me. It stung, but I let it roll off me. They were protecting their own. I had to protect mine. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt a lightness I hadn't felt in years. 2 weeks later, I closed on a small house 10 minutes away from our old one. It was a bachelor pad, but it was my sanctuary. The first thing I did was set up Ben and Maya's rooms, exactly how they wanted them. Ben got a space-themed room with glow-in-the-dark stars. Maya got a reading nook piled high with pillows. This was their home too. For myself, I bought a new grill, a comfortable couch, and a ridiculously large TV. I filled the silence with music she always hated. I worked out relentlessly, the physical pain, a welcome distraction from the emotional kind. I got a promotion at work. I started seeing a therapist who helped me understand that her betrayal was a reflection of her character, not my worth. About 6 months after I moved out, Sarah called. "Hey," she said, her voice tentative. I was thinking, for the kids' sake, maybe we could try to be friends. I almost laughed. It wasn't for the kids. It was for her. She wanted my absolution. She wanted to be able to tell herself and Rick that we were all one big, happy, modern family. She wanted to erase the damage by pretending it didn't matter. "No, Sarah," I said, my voice calm but firm. "We're not friends. We can be polite. We can be respectful. We will be excellent co-parents. But we will never be friends. You don't get to be friends with the man whose life you blew up." I hung up. The boundary felt like a brick wall I had just finished building. The final piece of closure came unexpectedly. I was at a work conference and ran into a woman who used to be one of Sarah's closest friends from college. We caught up over drinks. After the third glass of wine, she looked at me with pity in her eyes. "I was so sad when I heard you two were splitting up," she said. "I always thought you were the one who finally tamed her. After what she did to that poor guy David her senior year, I never thought she'd cheat again." The air left my lungs. "David? What happened with David?" She clapped a hand over her mouth. "Oh my God. You didn't know she had a whole year-long thing with a married professor. It completely destroyed David when he found out." And there it was. It wasn't me. It wasn't the spark. It wasn't something I did or didn't do. This was who she was. It was a pattern, a flaw in her code that had nothing to do with me. Any last lingering shred of self-blame I held onto evaporated in that hotel bar. I went home that weekend and took the kids to the beach. As I watched them chase the waves, their laughter carrying on the wind, I felt a profound sense of peace. My old life was gone, burned to the ground. But I had walked out of the fire, and in its place, I was building something new. Something better. Something that was all mine.
Story 13.
I handed my mom the gift bag. It was small, a little heavier than it looked. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a coffee mug that said, "You're not a regular mom, you're a Times Glamma asterisk." Corny, I know, but it was perfect for her. Mark squeezed my hand under the brunch table. I was vibrating with a nervous energy that had nothing to do with the 2 mimosas I'd already downed. Mom pulled out the mug. She smiled a polite, "Oh, this is cute, honey," kind of smile. Then she saw the little white stick tucked inside. The one with the 2 pink lines that had turned my entire world on its axis. Her face crumpled. It was the good kind of crumpling, the one that comes before the happy tears. "Lily, are you..." I nodded my own eyes, getting misty. "Happy Mother's Day, Mom." She launched herself across the table, all but knocking over the basket of croissants, and wrapped me in a hug that smelled like hairspray and excitement. Mark beamed. For about 5 minutes, it was perfect. It was exactly the moment I had imagined. Then came the hard part. "Mom," I said once we'd all settled back down, "listen, this is really, really important. We are so excited to tell you. But we're only 8 weeks along. We are not telling anyone else until we're past the first trimester." Mark jumped in. "And we really want to be the ones to tell people you know, in our own way, in our own time." I looked her straight in the eye. "So please, this stays between us. No Facebook, no calling your sisters, nothing. Can you promise me?" "Oh, honey, of course," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "My lips are sealed. This is your news. I get it. I should have known then." The way she said, "Your news" had an unspoken but it's times, my times grandbaby attached to it. The first crack in the dam appeared 2 days later. My phone buzzed with a text from her. It was a screenshot of a conversation with her best friend Susan. "Susan, any news?" Mom times. Can't say anything official. "But you might want to start knitting some booties." Triple O asterisk. My stomach dropped. I immediately called her. "Mom, what is this? We talked about this." "Oh, Lily, relax. It's just Susan. I had to tell times I was bursting. Besides, I didn't really tell her. I was just hinting. It's totally different." It was not totally different. Mark just sighed when I told him. "Well, the secret's out to Susan. Let's just hope your mom can hold it together for everyone else." He was giving her more credit than she deserved. On Friday, my phone rang. Aunt Carol's name flashed on the screen. My mom's older sister. The family gossip hub. I knew before I even answered. "Hi, Aunt Carol." "Lily, honey, I just heard the wonderful news. Your mother told me." "A baby. I'm just so thrilled for you. When are you due? Do you know what you're having?" My blood ran cold. I mumbled some non-answers, thanked her for her call, and hung up my hand shaking. I texted Mark a single, frantic line times, "Aunt Carol knows." Asterisk. He called me instantly. "Okay. This is not okay." She promised Mark. She looked me in the eye and promised. "I know, babe. I'm going to call her. Right now. We need to shut this down." I listened on speaker as Mark, in his calmest, most diplomatic voice, laid it out for her again. He was firm but kind. He explained how hurt I was, how we felt our trust had been broken, and how this was the last warning. No more people. Period. My mom was a waterfall of apologies. "I am so sorry. I just got carried away. Carol called me and I was just so excited it slipped out. It won't happen again. I swear on my life. I'll be a vault." A vault. Right. For a week, there was silence. Blessed, wonderful silence. I started to relax. Maybe she'd finally gotten the message. Maybe the double-barreled talking to from both me and Mark had worked. We started planning how we'd tell my dad and Mark's parents. We bought a little onesie to give them, made a whole plan. We were taking our moment back. Then I woke up on a Saturday morning to 37 text messages. They were all variations of the same thing. Asterisk. "Oh my God, Lily, congrats. Saw your mom's post, asterisk. Asterisk. So excited for you guys. Why didn't you tell me, asterisk? Asterisk. Grandma to be is so happy. The picture is adorable, asterisk. My heart hammered against my ribs. I fumbled with my phone, my fingers suddenly clumsy, and opened Facebook. And there it was. It was the first thing on my feed. My mother had tagged me in it. Tagged Mark. Tagged my sister, my dad, about 15 cousins. It was a picture of our ultrasound photo, the one I had sent her privately just for her, plastered next to a selfie of her beaming holding up the Glamma mug. The caption was a novel. Some things are just too wonderful to keep secret any longer. My beautiful daughter Lily and my amazing son-in-law Mark are giving me the best gift I could ever ask for. I'm going to be a grandma feeling so blessed and can't wait to spoil baby Henderson rotten. Get ready for a whole lot of grandma posts from me. Number Grandma Toby, number so excited, number blessed, number baby on the way. It had been posted 14 hours ago. 14 hours. It had 184 likes and 97 comments. Comments from my high school friends. Comments from Mark's coworkers who he wasn't even close to. Comments from distant relatives in another state who we hadn't even thought about telling yet. She had stolen it. She had taken our one single piece of news, the most personal, fragile, monumental news of our lives, and she had made it about her. Her excitement, her new title, her platform. I scrolled through my text, my vision blurring with rage. And there at the very top was a message from her. Sent at 12:03 a.m. Asterisk. So excited. Can I post my big news asterisk? She hadn't even waited an hour for a reply she knew she wouldn't get. She just asked for performative permission before doing exactly what she wanted to do anyway. Mark came into the living room holding 2 mugs of coffee. He saw the look on my face and put them down. What is it? He asked, his voice soft. I just turned the phone screen towards him. I watched his face shift. From confusion to disbelief to pure, unadulterated fury. He took the phone from my hands. He scrolled. He read the comments. He looked at the timestamp. 14 hours, he said, his voice dangerously low. She let this sit here for 14 hours. I finally found my voice. She robbed us, Mark. He pulled me into a hug, his arms a steel cage of anger. I'm going to call her. No, I said, pulling away. Not you. Me. My phone started buzzing in my hand. It was her. Calling me. Probably to gush about all the wonderful comments she was getting. I hit ignore. A text popped up immediately. Asterisk. Why aren't you answering? Did you see my post? Everyone is so happy, asterisk. I couldn't even form words. I just stared at the message, a hot, bitter wave of betrayal washing over me. My thumb started typing a message full of fire and venom. I was about to hit send when another text from her came through. Asterisk. Fine, I took it down. Only a few people even saw it anyway. Don't be so dramatic. Asterisk. Asterisk. Only a few people saw it. Asterisk. The words glowed on the screen, a monument to her delusion. A few people, 184 likes, and 97 comments were not a few people. They were a stadium full of people she had invited to a party I was supposed to be hosting. My thumbs flew across the screen, raw and furious. Before I could second guess myself, I hit send. Asterisk. Call me. Now. Asterisk. My phone rang less than a second later. I jabbed the green icon. What have you done? I didn't even say hello. Lily, for God's sake, I took it down. You don't need to be so hostile. I was just excited. Her voice was high and tight, the one she used when she was pretending to be the wounded party. Excited? You call this excited? You plastered my private medical information all over the internet after Mark begged you to keep your mouth shut. You stole our announcement. Ours, Mark and I, don't get to have that moment now. You took it. Oh, stop being so ridiculous, she snapped, the victim act already cracking. I did not steal anything. I shared my joy. Is a grandmother not allowed to be happy? Is that the new rule? I have to hide my feelings so I don't offend your delicate sensibilities. My delicate sensibilities. Mom, this isn't about your feelings. It's about my pregnancy, my baby, my husband, and me. It's about our explicit request for privacy, which you have stomped all over every single chance you got. First with Susan, then with Aunt Carol, and now this grand finale of disrespect. Disrespect, she shrieked. You want to talk about disrespect? You're a bully, Lily. You've always been a bully. You get one little thing you want, and you hold it over everyone's head. You are denying me the joy of this. This is happening to me, too. I actually laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound that held no humor. This is happening to you. Are you the one who's going to be up all night with a screaming baby? Are you the one whose body is currently being hijacked by a tiny parasite? No. You are not. You are a supporting character in this story, Mom. And you need to learn your role. There was a choked sound on the other end of the line. I can't believe you. You are the most selfish person I have ever known. Good, I said, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous calm. Let me be very clear so that you don't get confused again. I stood up and started pacing, Mark's worried eyes following me. You have proven that you cannot be trusted. You have shown me that your need for attention is more important than my feelings, my privacy, and my trust in you. I'm hanging up, she said, her voice wobbling. I will not be spoken to like this. No, you'll listen, I commanded. And then I'll be done. The line was silent. I took a deep breath. This stops now. The texts to your friends, the calls to your sisters, the goddamn Facebook posts. All of it. From this point forward, you don't share anything about me, my husband, or my child with anyone unless you get my explicit permission. Not a hint, not a whisper. Nothing. Do you understand? More silence. I need to hear you say you understand, Mom. This is insane, she whispered. Okay, I said, my patience gone. You're right. This is insane. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Mark was there in an instant, wrapping his arms around me. I heard he said into my hair, "Good for you. I'm so proud of you." I just nodded, burying my face in his chest. But I wasn't done. I pulled away, grabbed my phone, and opened my text with her. I had to put it in writing. I had to make it permanent. Asterisk. Since you seem to have a hard time understanding me on the phone, I'll type it out for you. Your behavior was unacceptable. You have the emotional maturity of a 5-year-old who needs to be the center of attention at all times. But this is not your party. A soon-to-be mother trumps a soon-to-be grandmother every single time. Asterisk, asterisk, I, asterisk, asterisk, am the priority now. My husband is the priority. This baby is the priority. Your feelings and your desperate need for likes on social media are so far down the list they don't even register. If you cannot learn to respect my boundaries, then you will not be a part of this. We will cut contact. This is your one and only warning. The absolute last one. Draw your line in the sand, and I'll draw mine. Asterisk. I sent it. The little delivered receipt felt like the final thud of a gavel. I showed it to Mark. He read the whole thing, his expression grim. He looked up at me and nodded slowly. Okay, he said. The line is drawn. An hour later, my sister Sarah called. Lily, what did you do? She asked, her voice a stressed-out whisper. Mom is hysterical. She called me sobbing, saying you threatened her. I set a boundary, Sarah. One, she has repeatedly proven she's incapable of respecting on her own. I know, and you're right. She was completely out of line with the Facebook post. It was awful. But your text? I mean, did you have to be so harsh? You called her a child. Was I wrong? There was a pause. No, she admitted quietly. But you know how she is. You just poured gasoline on the fire. The fire was already burning my house down. I just put it out with the first thing I could find. I sighed, rubbing my forehead. Look, I know you're in a tough spot. It was the unspoken truth between us. Sarah was still financially tied to our mother. Mom had co-signed on her apartment lease and was still paying her car insurance. Sarah couldn't afford to rock the boat. I could. She's telling everyone you're a major a-hole, Sarah said, her voice laced with the exhaustion of being the family mediator. She's convinced she's the victim here. That you're ungrateful and cruel and trying to take her grandbaby away from her. Let her, I said, and the lack of anger in my own voice surprised me. It was just resignation. Let her think whatever she wants. I don't care anymore. My only concern is protecting my own family. The one Mark and I are building. After we hung up, I sank onto the couch next to Mark. He put his arm around me and I leaned my head on his shoulder. My own mother thinks I'm an asshole, I said softly. She's wrong, he said, kissing the top of my head. You're a mama bear. You just found your roar. He was right. This wasn't just about a stolen announcement or a tacky Facebook post. It was the first battle in a long war I hadn't known I needed to fight. It was a line in the sand. From now on, every decision from who was in the delivery room to whether we posted pictures of our child online would be ours and ours alone. She had wanted to be a Times Glam Ma asterisk. Fine. But I was the mom. And my reign had just begun.
Story 14.
The login screen glowed in the dark of my tiny apartment. Sally Mae. The two words that had been a monster under my bed for the last 6 years. I typed in my password, my heart thumping a stupid, frantic rhythm against my ribs. The number popped up on the screen. To $843.17. That was it. The last of it. The final soul-crushing payment on a mountain of debt I'd been chipping away at since my first day in an ambulance. 6 years of ramen, of secondhand scrubs, of saying no to vacations and yes to every overtime shift offered. In 3 days, my next paycheck would hit and that number would become a beautiful, glorious 0. For the first time in my adult life, I was about to have breathing room. An extra $1,000 a month that wasn't earmarked for a past I was trying to outrun. I could replace my couch, which had a suspicious spring that jabbed you in the thigh if you sat on it wrong. I could take a trip somewhere that didn't involve a gurney. I could just be. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, rattling against a water glass. Asterisk. Mom. Asterisk. I stared at the screen, the joy draining out of me like blood from a bad wound. I knew I shouldn't answer. It was after 10, which meant she was home from her shift at the diner, her feet were aching and her mind was spinning. Nothing good ever came from a post 10 p.m. Call from Mom. I answered anyway. Hey, Mom. Chloe, you awake? Her voice was thin, frayed at the edges. Just got in. Long shift. Always a long shift for you, she said. It wasn't a compliment. I was just thinking about Becca. Of course she was. She was always thinking about Becca. My sister, the golden child, currently residing in the state penitentiary for women. My parents, formerly a mid-level manager and a dental hygienist, with a 401k and a paid-off mortgage, were now a part-time stalker at a big-box hardware store and a waitress who reeked of stale coffee and fryer. Oil. All for Becca. All because when Becca showed up on their doorstep panicked and covered in someone else's blood, they didn't call the police. They helped her clean up. They lied. Accessory after the fact. Obstruction of justice. They got 2 years. Becca got 10. They lost their jobs, their pensions, their house. They got out 6 months ago and moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment over a laundromat. And they got slapped with court fines so high they might as well have been a life sentence. Aunt Carol called Mom, continued her voice, dropping into the conspiratorial whisper she used when talking about Becca as if the parole officers were listening through the phone lines. She spoke with Becca's lawyer. He said she's doing okay. Taking a pottery class? That's nice, I said, my voice flat. Pottery? Of course. Becca was probably sculpting the perfect clay-based alibi. It's not nice, Chloe. It's hell, Mom snapped. We can't talk to her. We can't write to her. We can't even see her. Not one visit until those fines are paid. The lawyer said we might get a waiver for phone calls if we show significant progress on the payment plan. There it was. The topic that had become the background music to my life for the past 6 months. The fines. The money. The only thing standing between my parents and their precious imprisoned daughter. I know, Mom. It's a tough situation. A tough situation, she scoffed. Your father's back is thrown out from lifting boxes of patio furniture, and my tips tonight barely covered gas money. This isn't tough, Chloe. This is impossible. A heavy silence hung between us. I knew what she was doing. I could feel the hook being baited. I just stared at the $843.17 on my laptop screen. My number. My freedom. I have to get to bed, Mom. Early start tomorrow. Of course, she said, her voice dripping with manufactured martyrdom. Get your rest. The next Saturday, I made my obligatory weekly visit. Their apartment was suffocating. The air was thick with the smell of my dad's off-brand cigarettes and something vaguely like burnt toast. The walls were covered in pictures of Becca. Becca at her prom. Becca at her graduation. Becca on a beach, laughing her hair golden in the sun. There was one small framed photo of me on the bookshelf, a picture from my paramedic academy graduation, tucked behind a porcelain angel Becca made in 3rd grade. I was a supporting character in the story of my own family. Dad was in his recliner, a heating pad draped over his lower back, watching a game show. He grunted a hello. Mom was at the small kitchen table, a pile of envelopes, and a calculator in front of her. Look at this, she said, not as a greeting, but as a command. She shoved a piece of paper in my face. It was a notice from the county court. The balance was obscene. 5 figures. The monthly payment due was more than their rent. They just don't stop, do they, she said, her hand shaking slightly. It's a shakedown. It's the sentence, Mom, I said, setting my purse down. It's a leash, Dad grumbled from his chair. A way to keep punishing us. To keep us from our daughter. I just nodded and started making coffee, my usual Saturday ritual. It was easier than talking. As I filled the pot with water, I watched my mother's eyes drift to my purse. A nice one, a designer knockoff I'd bought myself as a little, you're almost there gift. Then her eyes flicked over to me, up and down, taking in my clean scrubs, my sturdy work boots, my newish-looking jacket. That's a nice coat, she said. Her voice was too casual. Must have cost a bit. It was on sale, I lied. Over coffee, the questions started. They were subtle at first. Little jabs disguised as chit-chat. Did you guys get that raise the union was talking about, Dad asked, not taking his eyes off the TV. It's still in negotiations, I said. Heard on the news that paramedics can make 6 figures with enough overtime, Mom added, stirring her coffee so hard it sloshed over the rim of her mug. Is that right? If you never sleep, I said, my stomach tightening. They knew. They had to know. They'd watched me work 60-hour weeks for years. They'd heard me complain about the debt. They must have been counting down the days right along with me, but for a very different reason. My finish line was their starting block. The next week, the pressure cranked up. Text from Mom in the middle of my shift, a picture of another court notice with a sad face emoji. A late night call from Dad, his voice thick with cheap whiskey, rambling about how he saw a girl who looked just like Becca at the store, and it nearly broke his heart. I was at their place again, dropping off groceries I knew they couldn't afford when I saw it. Mom was on the couch pretending to be asleep, but her laptop was open on the coffee table. The screen was lit up. It was my bank's homepage. She must have seen me looking at it on my phone once and memorized the name. She hadn't gotten in, of course, but she'd been trying. She was trying to see my balance. My blood ran cold. They weren't just dropping hints anymore. They were doing reconnaissance. They were calculating. My extra $1,000 a month wasn't just a fantasy about a new couch. To them, it was a line item in their budget. It was their significant progress on the Becca Fund. I left the groceries on the counter and walked out without saying a word. The silence lasted for 3 days. It was a tense, heavy, quiet that felt louder than their usual nagging. I knew they were planning something. A summit. A final appeal. On Wednesday, my last day before the direct deposit that would change everything, my phone rang. It was Dad. His voice was different. No whining, no guilt. Just a flat, serious tone I hadn't heard since before the arrest. "Chloe," he said. "Your mother and I need to see you tonight. Come for dinner." "I'm kind of tired, Dad. It's not a request," he said, cutting me off. The words were quiet, but they hit me like a slap. "We've been talking. We have a solution." The drive over was short, but my stomach twisted itself into a series of increasingly complicated knots. A solution. My parents didn't find solutions. They created problems and then expected me to manage the fallout. I walked up the rickety stairs to their apartment, the air already smelling like stale desperation and burnt onions. They were sitting at the kitchen table side by side, facing the door like an execution squad. My dad had put on a collared shirt and my mom had a printed out spreadsheet next to her coffee cup. This was an ambush meticulously planned. "Sit down, Chloe," my mother said, gesturing to the empty chair opposite them. I didn't. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. It was a small act of defiance, but it was all I had. My dad cleared his throat. "We know things have been tense." He began the words, sounding rehearsed. "And we know we've put a lot of pressure on you. So we made a plan." Mom cut in, tapping the spreadsheet. She was the numbers person. "A family plan. We've done the math. Based on your paramedic salary minus your rent, utilities, and a generous estimate for groceries and gas, and factoring in the conclusion of your student loan payments." She took a breath, her eyes glinting. "You'll have a surplus of approximately $1,050 a month, starting this Friday." I felt my blood run cold. She had calculated my life down to the dollar. "The minimum payment on our fines is $750. She continued, sliding the paper across the table towards me. "If you give us $800 a month, we can cover that and have a little left over to show the parole board we're making significant progress. In a few months, maybe 6, they'll grant the waiver for phone calls. We'll be able to hear Becca's voice again." Her voice cracked on Becca's name. It was the kill shot. The guilt bomb she'd been perfecting my entire life. My father just nodded along his face, set in grim agreement. This was it. The solution. I was the solution. My future, my breathing room, my one goddamn new couch was their ticket back to their golden girl. They looked at me, their expressions a mixture of hope and stern expectation. They weren't asking. They were informing me of my new financial obligations. I stared at the spreadsheet at the neat little columns that laid out my life for their consumption. I thought of the extra shifts, the meals I'd skipped, the times I'd glued the sole of my boot back on because I couldn't afford a new pair. All of it leading to this moment where the fruits of my labor were being claimed like a tax. I looked up from the paper and met my mother's eyes. "No," I said. The word hung in the tiny kitchen, seeming to suck all the air out of the room. My father flinched as if I'd slapped him. My mother's face just blanked. "What?" she whispered. "No," I repeated. My voice was quiet, but it felt like the loudest sound I'd ever made. "I'm not giving you my money." "Chloe, maybe you didn't understand," Dad started. "I understood perfectly," I said, cutting him off. "You want $800 a month?" The answer is no. My mother's face twisted from shock into a mask of pure rage. "No, just no. After everything we've done for you?" "What have you done for me?" The question was out before I could stop it. "You mean besides mortgaging your house to pay for Becca's first lawyer, or draining your retirement to pay for her second, or getting yourselves thrown in prison for her? What part of that was for me?" "We are your times, parents' times," she shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. The coffee cups jumped. "We kept a roof over your head. We fed you." "That's the bare minimum," I shot back, my own voice rising. "That's the job description. You don't get a Lifetime Achievement Award for not letting your kids starve." "This is about family," my dad said, his voice a low growl. "This is about helping your sister. Don't you have any loyalty, any heart? She is rotting in there and we can't even talk to her. Your refusal is cruel. It's selfish." "Selfish," I laughed a sharp, ugly sound. "I've worked 60-hour weeks for 6 years to get out of a hole. You want me to jump right back into another one that you and Becca dug and you call times, me, time selfish. My money is mine. I earned it. I bled for it." "It's just money, Chloe," Mom cried, tears of frustration streaming down her face now. "It's paper. This is about our daughter, your sister. You would choose a new couch over letting me hear my baby's voice." "Yes," I said. The word was cold and hard in my mouth. "Yes, I would. Because it's not about the couch. It's about the fact that you see my life, my work, my entire future as nothing more than a resource for you to get back to her." I grabbed my purse from the counter. I couldn't breathe in that room anymore. "You are a disappointment," my father said, his voice flat and dead. A cold, ungrateful disappointment. I didn't look back. I walked out the door, his words chasing me down the stairs. The direct deposit hit my account 2 days later. The balance was higher than I'd ever seen it. I immediately logged into the Sallie Mae site and made the final payment. $843.17. Gone. A pop-up window appeared with digital confetti. Asterisk. "Congratulations, you've successfully paid off your loan." Asterisk. I felt nothing. No joy. No relief. Just a hollow ache in my chest. The silence from my parents was absolute. For 4 days, my phone didn't ring. My message notifications were silent. It was a heavy, vindictive quiet. Then on the 5th day, the text started. Not conversations. Just commands. A text from Mom Times, "You need to fix this." Asterisk. The next day from Dad Times, "Your sister deserves better." Asterisk. Then another from Mom, a single gut-wrenching photo of Becca from her high school graduation, smiling in her cap and gown. Underneath at Times, "Don't you remember this girl?" Asterisk. I started leaving my phone on silent. The guilt was a physical thing, a weight in my stomach that made it hard to eat. I'd be in the back of the ambulance doing chest compressions on a stranger, and my dad's voice would echo in my head. Asterisk. A cold, ungrateful disappointment. Asterisk. Were they right? Was I sacrificing my family for a few hundred extra dollars? But then the anger would come roaring back. The image of that spreadsheet. The cold, calculated way they had portioned out my life for their own ends. They hadn't asked for help. They had levied a tax. Tonight I'm sitting on my couch, the one with the bad spring, staring at my banking app. The money is just sitting there. My money. I could book a flight. I could put a down payment on a decent car. I could do anything. But I feel paralyzed. I close the app and open a web browser. My fingers move on their own, typing into the search bar. I find a forum, a place where strangers pass judgment on the anonymous confessions of others. I start to type. Asterisk. Am I an idiot for refusing to pay my criminal parents' court fine so they can talk to my felon sister? Asterisk. I stop and look at the words on the screen. It hits me then, a realization so sharp and clear, it feels like a physical blow. They weren't asking for help to rebuild their lives. They weren't asking for money for rent or food. They wanted me to buy back their access to the child they actually valued. They didn't see me, their responsible, law-abiding paramedic daughter. They just saw a walking, talking ATM. The key to unlocking the Becca vault. And my one refusal had shown me I was never really part of the family at all. I was just the funding.